This is Caribbean Vibes.
When I start to sweat, man, I'm soaking wet. Mama, so much stress. That's a night I can't focus. 10 of them against me with 50 spectators. And the way they coming up like they want to devour. But in the heat of the excitement, it's then I remember. In my next pants pocket, I forget me better. I don't know what to do, but I just can't surrender. So they go cut me down to the smallest pretender. You could imagine how the planet was to be golden river.
10 to 1. 10 to 1 is murder.
Started to shiver.
That's the theme of our show today. Good morning, folks, and welcome to U975 FM, to our very special, highly rated political program 10 to 1. Only one place to be, and that's 975 FM. To all of those who are locked on to YouTube on RCL U975, we welcome you. Welcome on board. To those on the traditional radio band of 975, good morning. And to all my friends on Facebook, a special good morning to you. It's just about 3 minutes after the top of the hour.
This is Caribbean Vibes.
You know, July has been a month of tension on all sides of the political fence. We are about to reach a critical milestone in campaigning when it's just about 15 days to go before the general election, that grand day on August 10th. That means getting your campaign crew in every nook and cranny of the political landscape. All parties proceeded to speak with, take photos with, and shake the hands of every kid on the block. They were over the moon. I've never seen anything like it. This morning, the Trinidad Guardian had a poll done which indicated that smaller parties or a third political force is almost non-existent. What are your views on that? Do you think that there's room for a third political party to have an impact on this election? We will speak a little later on in the program to Louis Leasing, leader of the Port of Spain Progressive Party, who is also part of the Better United group, leads one of the smaller parties in the Port of Spain area. He will speak on that view where the Guardian, Trinidad Guardian, have paid for a poll being done, and they have indicated that there's no room in Trinidad and Tobago politics for a third party. It's going to be expensive campaigning from now on. Yes, money always speaks. Although my good friend Jack Warner from the ILP, he says his campaign is a poor one. Yet I'm seeing full page ads every day on the newspaper. We will chat a little bit about the Express editorial, which criticized the opposition leader, Mistress Kamla Persad-Bissessar. She came in for some heavy lashing, referring to COVID-19 stranded nationals as being treated like in the days of slavery. And Dr. Keith Rowley, he emerged that Trinidad and Tobago bringing in Commonwealth observers will be too expensive for the country. He also said it would be bias of the government to pay for their stay in expenses and so on, noting that if those same observers were to send out a report on behalf of the government, people will say that they are biased. But they are expected to have 3 CARICOM observers coming in very soon. We don't know when. There's no confirmation from which of the CARICOM countries, but 3 CARICOM observers are expected to come in very soon. Remember, the elections is just about 15 days away. Bearing that in mind, let's go into looking at the newspaper and what they have published today. 300 exposed. Top story in the Sunday Express. SEA pupils test positive for COVID-19. Teachers and children are forced to quarantine at home. 200 more at risk. And there's a nice photo in the front page of the Express in tribute to all those who have lost their lives during the 1990 coup, tomorrow being the 30th anniversary. At some point, we'll try and reach Imam Yazin Abu Bakr, if not today, tomorrow. I called his phone, but I didn't get through. Maybe a little later on in the program. If not tomorrow, I will try back. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Roshan Parasram is urging parents, if they know that their children are sick, please keep them at home. We have an incident here where an 11-year-old pupil of the Maraval Roman Catholic School who tested positive for COVID-19 have potentially exposed around 300 persons to the virus. President of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association, Antonia De Freitas, have expressed much concern over this latest development. She said, we made our position quite clear earlier, which was an unpopular one, that there was a lot of discontent with students and teachers showing up to school. She said it was ignored by the Ministry of Education. With the upsurge in COVID-19 cases, the government has now taken the decision to halt any further reopening of the economy, something we will be discussing in-house with our in-house economic consultant, Ved Seram, who will be joining me from about 10:30 a.m. The reopening of the entertainment industry has now been put on hold. That means events like party boats, nightclubs, concerts, etc. will not be allowed to resume. One of the things that they are starting to look at is the reopening of the entertainment industry. But from the latest development with COVID, there will be a halt on these things. At public hospitals, only one visitor per patient is allowed, and all persons must adhere to the public health regulations. Just for information to our listeners, there have been so far the number of confirmed COVID cases in Trinidad and Tobago, 147. 6,530 persons have submitted tests to CAFA. The number of deaths remain at 8. There are a number of people quarantined at the Davie campus, Tacarigua, the National Racket Center, Cascadia Hotel, the Regent Star Hotel, the home of football in Couva. And currently there are no patients at the Couva Hospital, none at the high dependency unit or intensive care unit. Well, thank God that Tropical Storm Gonzalo has dissipated into a tropical depression yesterday, sparing Trinidad and Tobago again, bringing only heavy rains to the Sister Isles of Tobago. At about 3:30 p.m. yesterday, the Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Office has discontinued its adverse weather alert. The Inter-Island Transportation Company also cancelled all sailings since Friday. That is expected to resume today. And it's strange that we would hear from Minister LeHunt, a former Minister of Public Utilities. Apparently it seems that he's still very much active in the People's National Movement, although he was well loved for that seat in Labre, and after time and time again did not get chosen by the PNM. He have called on the opposition leader, Mrs. Kamla Persad-Bissessar. He said, at least apologize, Kamla. LeHunt advised Persad-Bissessar to buy a history book and read it and get yourself a better understanding of what our ancestors of Indo-Trinidadian and Afro-Trinidadian went through during the time of slavery. We don't want a leader in place equating us with slavery. He posted that video on social media yesterday. And the race is on for San Fernando West, where our Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi, there's much fancy for Faris. He said record-breaking achievements will ensure I am re-elected. He speaks with confidence. Meanwhile, the United National Congress candidate Sean Sobers, have said that he has new and bright ideas for San Fernando West. If we get some time, we'll probably look at that constituency. Later on in the program, I also expect to speak with Joseph Tony, the moderator and the person in charge of the Sandy Grande constituency, the Toko Sandy Grande, that is. Going back to the Express editorial. The Express editorial said the only message Mistress Kamla Prasad Bisesa should be sending is that everyone should wear masks and observe social distancing. That is something I agree with. As far as her comment goes, to give up on 10,000 of our people wanting to come home is worse than slavery and indentureship. Well, we hardly know where to start. The Express have described her statement as a dogged manner in which she have dogged her heels, describing our sisters and brothers who are abroad and stranded and comparing them to the days of slavery. She said the Express said it is extreme exaggeration for a feature speaker and a former leader to speak like that. 15 minutes after the top of the hour, let's take a short commercial break before we come back. Taking your calls on 636-7547, 227-5739.
Kathy's Cool Spot Enterprises Limited, number 86 Pearville, opposite the TSTT Exchange in Mayaro. We specialize in all types of meats, dry goods, liqueur, beverages, ice, LPG, gas, motor oils, stationery supplies, and photocopying. We also provide rentals of tents and chairs for your every occasion. Come in and take advantage of our specials at reduced prices on liqueur, wholesale and retail. We are open every day, even on public holidays, for your convenience. TT Post services are available here at Kathy's Cool Spot Enterprises Limited of number 86 Pearville, Mayaro, where our friendly staff will be happy to serve you.
KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Cunupia, for all your plumbing and electrical supplies, water heaters, filters and water pumps, plus all parts for Gould, Pentax and Leo pumps. Choose from leading brands such as Cooper, Varma, BTCino, Leviton and General Electric. Call 665-6954 for more information. KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Cunupia.
For quality items, visit Super Quality Supermarket of Endeavour Road, Chaguanas, and Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin City, as well as Quality Cash and Carry Supermarket, Cuba Car Park, for all your grocery items, liquor, fresh fruits, and vegetables, not forgetting their bed and bath section, and kitchen appliances for your home. With so many items to choose from, take advantage of our great prices and discounts at any of our 3 locations, Trin City Industrial Estate in Trin City, Endeavour Road, Chaguanas, and Cuba. For quality items, Super Quality Supermarket and Quality Cash and Carry Supermarket.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Cunupia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
The following is a paid political announcement.
This ad brought to you by the PNM. Sign my name with a golden pen, a golden pen. Sign my name, yeah. Anyway, we vote in PNM. Sign my name, it's a PNM pen, a PNM pen. How will you sign my name? It's a PNM pen. We vote in PNM. On August 10th, vote PNM. Great is the PNM.
That was a paid political announcement.
Hello, I am Rajendra Ramprasad, your PNM candidate for Couva South. I ask for your support to take Hoover South into government and to improve the quality of life for all of us. I have specific plans to create jobs, to improve agriculture, to revive Point Lisas, and to develop our infrastructure, also to enhance security. As a person born in Dow Village, California, and started my education at Esperanza Presbyterian School, I want to use my years as a successful businessman and a resident of Hoover South to partner with you to make our communities better. I ask for your vote on August the 10th. Vote Rajendra Ramprasad, the right choice for a better Hoover South. Vote PNL.
The following is a paid political announcement.
This ad brought to you by the PNM.
PNM is a PNM power. PNM, a positive healing power. PNM, moving forward together. PNM, introducing Rishi, my brother.
All of we is one family. All of we is one family. Working together to build this country. When the world was breaking, everyone agreed. When the world was breaking, be happy it was seen. And that is why we voted for our country.
On August 10th, vote PNM. Great is the PNM.
That was a paid political announcement.
Welcome back, folks. Welcome back. I wanted to discuss in some detail this poll conducted by the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian, showing that voting is still heavily influenced by race. The PNM and the UNC in a tight election race. The People's National Movement being slightly ahead at just about 5%. And what struck me a lot was the number of youths, young people, that really do not care what happened after the election. They do not care who sits in power. The poll was conducted by Managing Director of HHB and Associates, Louis Bertrand, and according to his information here, it stated that new political parties have not influenced the voting population. According to Mr. Bertrand, none, not a single one of them. So a third force could be existent, yes, but the third force is not there as yet. We said we have to deal with what we have. You had in the PNM, voting for the PNM, 61.20% Afro-Trinidadians supporting the PNM, while 5.70% supporting the UNC. Whereas in Indo-Trinidadian, you had 7.30% supporting the PNM and 54.70% supporting the UNC. So clearly you can see that more Afro-Trinidadians support the PNM and more Indo-Trinidadians tend to sway towards the UNC. You have a mixed percentage of 44%. Ask how the country fared over the past 5 years. 47% of them said worse. 24% said better. And 28% said the same. While I am going through the poll, callers, you are free to call in on 636-7547 or 227-5739. There's 40% of the population who is not bothered by who wins. So the poll found that voting will be heavily influenced by race. There's an increased amount of disenchanted voters. For many elections in the past, it has been known that young people, they don't really care who wins or who sits in power. They don't really campaign and all of that. But this amount of persons have increased over the past couple of years. According to the poll, 40% of the respondents, who were all registered to vote, said they do not care who wins the general election. Furthermore, the lack of interest extends to persons between the age of 18 and 44 years, and that strikes me because that is the working age for the population. Let us hear what the scholar have to say. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. That's a fake PNM poll.
Hello? Okay. Person says it's a fake PNM poll. Well, it was issued and distributed by the Trinidad and Tobago Guardian. Where do you live? Is there a number of young people who do not care what happened at the end of the election? I think, I will discuss some of this when Wade Seram comes into studio with where young people stand today and what are their main concerns and interests. They are more concerned about the unemployment rate, how many of them have to pack their bags and go abroad to survive and live and get further education. I think that is what would attract young people. They don't really care who sits in power. Well, some more on the poll here. Louis Bertrand was specialized in marketing, research, and public opinion. The respondents were 300 men and 300 women between the ages of 18 to 60 who are registered to vote. The margin of error in the poll is just about 4%. And Bertrand Poll was the only pollster to correctly call the 2015 general election results. You can catch it in the Sunday Guardian published today. 30% reported that they are worse off than 5 years ago. So the youths don't really care where they stand. 27% of the young people between the ages of 18 to 44 felt that they had done better. A two-stage sampling process was used for the poll. In the first stage, a sampling of constituencies was selected with a probability of proportional representation. This was based on the current EBC data. In the second stage, the polling division of each selected constituencies was selected based on the size of the winning party. Questionnaires were administered face-to-face with interviewees and households in the selected polling division. You can catch a glimpse of that poll and its result in the Sunday Guardian. Well, according to Dr. Rowley, today is the last day for Commonwealth observers to enter the country. Apparently, no Commonwealth observers are coming for TNT elections, but there is a possibility of CARICOM observers. Dr. Rowley said that CARICOM has been invited to send observers and 3 countries has responded to provide a team. He also he said Trinidad and Tobago is no banana republic and that we are capable of conducting our own elections. As far as COVID-19 is concerned, and that is on the mind of many of our citizens, following weeks of appeal by health officials, members of the public, they are finally coming forward to be tested. That is some good news. At yesterday's Ministry of Health media briefing, Dr. Roshan Parasram, the Chief Medical Officer, said that the total number of community tests done since April have reached 2,515 between July 5th and 11th. Let's hear this caller. Good morning.
Good morning, the Lone Ranger, and how are you, young lady? And
very well.
And if you have a co-host?
Wade will be here by 10:30.
Okay. And listen to me. Everybody know a councillor by the name of Shankar Tilak Singh.
Of course, from Cedras.
He always on this radio station, he has been telling the national community where the illegal venues coming in. The Minister of National Security have sticking his ears out. No, I'm very, very annoyed the kind of stupidity you hear coming up from the Minister of National Security. You have people giving him information, and you know what he do? He say, call 555 now. This gentleman, not because he's in UNC, he's giving you credible evidence. He's telling you where they are in the
Yes,
south.
I've interviewed Mr. Tilok Singh many times on this program
Am
in
I
the
not right?
afternoon. Yes.
Did the minister have chicken his head?
Well,
who we trying
I'm
to
sure they
fool?
have people listening.
Who is trying to fool you? Getting good information from the opposition on many issues, and you're ignoring
You have
it.
indicated that there are over 150 ports open.
Right, and what more information you want? You have citizens, he's a citizen. Why don't you meet with him?
Caller, you would have been listening last day when I went into detail about this this illegal immigration being done and the patrol by the Coast Guard and how incompetent they are.
Ma'am, let me tell you that you seen Chagramas? It has happened since Thy Kingdom Come. You remember a fella named Bruce Lee, brother, Chinley?
Mm-hmm.
Remember he had a boat used to go south, and every night, Friday night coming in, they used to, at that point in time, they used to have one immigration officer with the face closed in the night. So anybody going and coming, going and coming. No. So it become the norm down there. That was an open border. Now people know that from all over probably Venezuela. No, you could come in there easy. Now I see a video showing plenty boats, and now he asking people to tell him. No man, he had to be sleeping on the rock. He had to change his pin and go to get a headless pin now.
Well, now we are seeing Stuart Young is saying that don't harbor illegal immigrants. He's now saying that. But I think
they don't have illegal immigrants.
he is very well aware of where they are coming
He
in.
has to go to eye specialist now because everybody telling us and showing us, and he's saying they don't. So what the police wasting the time holding illegal immigrants all over the place?
Yes, and you're right. He has urged the public to call 555 hotline.
Right. The police holding and we're spending a set of money to house them. I'm not too sure if we're testing them. What we take all the COVID money to test everybody here to save the country from the spiraling and the spread. So you can't tell you're not testing them. That's a poor excuse. I'm very annoyed I'm hearing him say that. The man since I can't remember, since you get them the carte blanche to come in and you say that he has been telling us every week on week, hey, the port open, the people come in, only do something about it. And you all not doing something. The day we get a positive case with the Venezuelans here, all hell break loose, you know that?
Particularly with the threat to COVID, I thought they would have paid more particular attention to that illegal immigration.
The other thing, this man who leading our country, this honorable Prime Minister, he feels stupid. I know he tell a lot of people they're stupid, you know. I believe he deliberately reached his decision to prevent observers from coming in. You went to Guyana earlier, clock in, insert yourself in a CARICOM group of people going on there with Gonzalez and Mia Motley, those honorable people, just to see what was happening in Guyana, all the turmoil, a man trying to steal the election. Somebody says he's a sanctimonious gangster. That is what OAS say about the man and Golden. Now, you go down there. You had first-hand information. You went with your chief election officer. Remember, he take a team to inspect and Marcos. I used to using that word. You could tell me at that point in time, you couldn't have the foresight, the intelligence to say, let me invite them people early o'clock, because he has the date for the election, you know. So he is the man with has to make the plan. 6 weeks after the opposition leader here coming to say they can't come, it's too expensive. What we give you COVID money for? What the parliament approve it for? You can't come and tell we have the election. Take some of the COVID money to pay for them, because we want to have a free and fair election inside the COVID. We don't want the same thing to happen in Guyana, because it's looking like you want that to happen. Because as I've always said, if somebody sneezes in that line when it's having polling on polling day, You know what will happen? Everybody will scare. They go lock it down. What will happen after that? You have to have a contingency plan. Tell the people who are going to vote what could happen in the event the Sahara does make everybody sneeze in the line, and you had to close it down, the polling division, to sanitize it. Tell us if you're going to extend the voting to another day. Tell us all those things. Those are the simple things we want the leadership of this country to do. I don't want to get set under pressure because stupid, small pain is a real unintelligent person.
Thank you, Paula. Call us back a little later on. Well, Dr. Rowley have said that he sent invitations to CARICOM observers and they did not respond. Now, if they don't come today, in case people are wondering why they would not be able to come again, remember they have to be quarantined for 14 days. And Dr. Rowley is claiming that to quarantine these people for 14 days on the government's expense will be very expensive. Hello, good afternoon. Good morning, sorry. Good morning.
That's all right.
I'm so accustomed in the evening.
That's all right. I know you sleep a little too long. Yeah, what happened? Any opposition leader called for the people that come in the observers.
The CARICOM observers and Commonwealth.
So she's calling for things to happen, but she don't want to put on her set. When she prayed for the people that come in and get them coming here to the Prime Minister, because the Prime Minister is telling those 10% to have no observers come here. Because we don't have this problem like Guyana. And people want this problem to come like Guyana because they know the UNC don't lose the election. So that is all them bacchanal they're making right now. That they want observers, they want this, they want that. Look, I see Kamala have an ad on the paper here this one. Kamala plus UNC COVID plan. Right? A whole back page. In the Guardian. Anybody want? Let them read it and they will see what the woman will be saying. And you know what gets me with the school? 65 years and over.
The poll?
43%. How much do you care who win the next general election by age group? 65 years, say 43%.
Yes, that is true.
So the young people are voting. The old people
they don't care. They don't care who wins.
So which means they're saying, okay.
Anything goes, which means that anything goes.
Anything goes. With the PNM stay there because they're doing a better work as I concern. Because they show you everything on the paper. Yeah, see that where they show you that where they're taking courts. They show you that where they're breaking down courts. Where the UNC pay 3 and 4 times to get it done. Them saving money on it. Look at like the warehouse restoration. The Sherway cost $866 million. The PNM price was $441 and they pay $445 million. You want better than that? They're saving the money and they're trying to do what they could do. And I'm saying, like, I see that where Rudy and I was a minister in the last government. And if I are you are people to go to a PNM meeting, and he's saying that he and you don't want a letter, he and you no letter, he never employs you, but how you call she by phone and you fire she, and the industrial condition $173,000 for damages. And that's foolish. That's when you're a candidate, you become an MP, and also you become a minister and you have power. You could do anything. You are people in used to have working for money and you fire a woman and want to give you $5,000 after until she dies. And then fellas want to talk about they could run this and they could run that. I only hope Rajendra Rampasa beat him when time to come in the general election. Okay, then.
Thank you. Thank you, caller. Listeners, let us take a short commercial break, and when we come back, Ved Siram will be joining us in studio live.
Visit Eddie's Pharmacies Limited newest location inside JTA Supermarket, C3 Center, Current Village, San Fernando. They offer blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol and pregnancy testing, as well as all pharmaceutical products and over-the-counter drugs, along with CDAP prescriptions. Sagicor Carry Care International Medical Card, Guardian Life Provider Card and Republic Bank points are all accepted at their 3 locations of Eddie's Pharmacy Limited. RS Building, Rosha Douglas Road, Barrackpore, GN Building in Pinal, and C3 Center, Current Village, San Fernando.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all-purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Canupia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
Hello, I am Rajendra Ramprasad, your PNM candidate for Couva South. I ask for your support to take Couva South into government and to improve the quality of life for all of us. I have specific plans to create jobs, to improve agriculture, to revive Point Lisas and to develop our infrastructure, also to enhance security. As a person born in Dow Village, California and started my education at Esperanza Presbyterian School, I want to use my years as a successful businessman and a resident of Couva South to partner with you to make our communities better. I ask for your vote on August the 10th. Vote Rajendra Ramprasad, the right choice for a better Couva South. Vote PNM.
20 minutes before the top of the hour. Welcome back, listeners and viewers, on RCLU 975 FM. Hot Like Pepper Multicultural Radio, 10 to 1. Welcome and good morning to our very special, my co-host here for this morning, Ved Seeram. Good morning, Ved.
Good morning, Anne. Good morning to all listeners.
It's only 15 days before that big day. How are you doing?
It's counting down very fast.
Indeed it is.
The last I heard it was 18 days, now 15.
Yes. So. What concerns me a lot, Ved, is the number of people who are disenchanted and like they just don't care. They don't care who will come in power next. Why is that?
Well, it just shows the disenchantment with general politics, you know. And that's why I've been talking about it a little, that we need to change the politics because too many people are left out of the democratic process.
Let's hear what this caller have to say. Good morning.
Morning, Anne. Morning, Mr. Sirama.
Morning, sir.
Go ahead.
Mr. Sirama, one question for you. Do you think that if the PNL win this election, they're going to take off all the subsidy of the gas and the diesel?
Well, whoever wins, they'll have to be faced with that challenge for the simple reason, and it's a question of mathematics. So far, you remember the government has been borrowing money. They've virtually sold out all the assets. They have a few assets still remaining, but by and large, they've sold out all the assets. In the meantime, the deficit has grown so huge. I mean, $15 to $20 billion.
The few assets they have can't subsidize that.
No. No, it can't. It can't. And therefore, they're left with no alternative but to reduce the staffing reduce the size of the public sector. They have to do it. And they're not going to go to the IMF as yet until all the foreign reserves has run out. But don't forget, they are topping up the foreign reserves with borrowings, and that doesn't make sense. So in other words, you're borrowing to save. It just doesn't make sense. But I think I don't know why they have embarked on that strategy, but that is what they have been doing. But by and large, for all intent and purposes, government is insolvent. Now, when you're insolvent, what is going to happen? The first thing that you see is that they're extending payables. In other words, money is due to people, they're just not paying them. And if we ask the government, please list out your payables, they are unable to do so. So that's another area of a question of reporting. So to answer your question, sir, I think it is inevitable. They are trying to keep it at bay for the longest possible time, and there will be certain triggers that will that will almost ensure that those things happen. Those things meaning to say cut in subsidies and so on.
636-7547 2275739. We are live also on YouTube on RCLU 975. Listeners and viewers, you can also WhatsApp us on 3784975. Wade, I was asking you why so many of the young people are disenchanted.
Well, I think there's a great amount of confusion as well. And I think the question of democracy as practice is a minority government always is in place. And I think that the fact that they are not sure, it would mean to say that they're looking for something else, but they're not seeing an
They're
alternative.
not seeing it.
Yeah.
Let's hear this caller. Good morning.
Good morning, Anne, and good morning, Mr. Siram.
Good morning, sir.
A while ago, Anne, you said the polls on the Guardian poll said the race for the election is very close.
Yes.
Yeah, but did it give you seat by seat, like, who out in which seat? And
No.
Not yet.
They give it party by party.
Party by party, but I'll tell you something in my opinion from years I observe. You see young people who are saying they ain't too sure about voting and they ain't care. It's a shame to say the party that they are supporting the government. They don't want nobody to make the government fail. So they won't come out and say that. But the day for the election, they're going to vote for the government in power. This government. So, people are keep that in the brain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, caller. Wait, what you think about it?
No, absolutely. People, when they respond to polls, it's not necessarily that they're
they'll tell the truth.
No. So one is an element of confusion, and the second one of concealment of their true intentions.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Anne.
Hello, Eric.
Good morning, Mr. Siram.
Good morning, sir. Morning.
Mr. Siram, since you knocked on the economy very early, I just want to respond back.
Sure.
You've told me before that you are not in favor of the board of the Revenue Collection Authority, and you're not in favor of property taxes. Am I quoting you correctly?
Absolutely.
Right. Well, Mr. Siram, can you just opine for me how you expect us to cross this hurdle? Because back in 2010, that was the Samsung of the COP and the UNC, the joint forces, to become the PP. They said they're not in favor of that. They have a way to correct it. They had 5 long years in office. Mr. Dukran was there first, and then Mr. Hawaii came, and no credible substantive way came of correcting the deficit in collection of taxes, or how you going to deal with the question of people having property and not paying taxes. Do you care to opine anything? I'll listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'd be glad to opine. With regards to property taxes, I've made the point, I've written several articles on it, is that it's a tax on asset. And what effectively you'll be doing is you'll be penalizing those people who invest and save. And I don't think that's a good intention. Of course, people say we need money to run the schools and we need to repair the roads and so on. But there are other forms of taxation. If you look at the list of taxation, whether you call it duty, whether you call it VAT, whether you call it, government is taking too much from the population. Probably over 50% of your income goes in taxes one way or the next, direct or indirect, and that is not right. What the major culprit in all of this is a bloated government. A bloated government to the extent where you have excess people in all its state enterprises and central government. There are just too many persons in government, and that has to be addressed. What it means also to say is that we are upside down pyramid where very few people are creating the wealth in this country and the rest are just spending it, and it's time for that to stop. And I'm making the point, if you start with a blueprint, how many employees do you need to actually govern and administer Trinidad and Tobago? Trinidad and Tobago is 1.4 million. That's just a small little corner in Delhi. It's a small little corner in Mexico City, a small little corner in Tokyo, and you need all this overheads to manage it. It just doesn't make sense. We are not utilizing technology to the best extent, not even perhaps to 1/10 of its capacity. So we need to restructure this economy, and we need to live within our means. So I've addressed the question of property tax, because in my belief, property should not be taxed, because in the process of acquiring that property, you have already been taxed several times. So it doesn't make sense that you're penalizing somebody to
earn a property.
And quite apart from that, there are huge sort of disparities that will occur with regards to valuation of properties. Say, for example, if a family has inherited a home within the large commercial buildings in Port of Spain, and it's a small home that they have been living there for perhaps 60, 70, 80, 100 years, and the family has inherited it. Suddenly now are you going to value that property on a commercial basis and say this is the valuation, and you're going to penalize now persons who have been working, who have been just getting a pittance with regards to their pension funds to pay a property tax of that value? It just doesn't make sense. Are you effectively telling that person, look, you don't deserve to live there, just sell out and vacate? So there are many, many problems with regards to valuation. And what was most striking, I don't know if you recall, the Minister of Finance said, if once you have an outhouse, the maximum you will pay is 400. Look at the possibility that I decommission all my whatever toilets I have in the house and I build a outhouse. What are you going to do now? Charge me 400, and that's the deal. So I'm saying there are too many irregularities with regards to property tax, and you have been earning taxes. Now you have to look at a government and a country and determine what is their specific circumstances. Do you know Saudi Arabia, who had the wealth of oil and so on, had no taxes at all? They are now implementing PAYE. They're now considering implementing PAYE. Our government has not been poor. They own, as the communists will say, the commanding heights of the economy. They have sources of income. If they have mismanaged it, like in terms of Petrotrin, the oil sector, the gas sector, if they have mismanaged it, are they now going to pass that burden of mismanagement on the ordinary citizens of Trinidad? One last point with regards to taxes. You cannot take blood from stone. You cannot. And the tax pool in Trinidad, the pool of taxpayers in Trinidad is dwindling very, very fast.
Call us back, caller 636-7547, 227-5739. Wait, go ahead.
Yeah, with regards to the special unit for collection of taxes, just imagine it'd be almost running a parallel system. Whilst government said they're going to move some of the employees from government to put into the revenue, I had researched it. I was asked on a panel to speak about it, and when I looked at it throughout the world, there's no concrete evidence that it works. But the collection of taxes, I am saying, is the problem collection of taxes, or is the problem too much expenditure by the government? And we have to determine that first. I am asking a simple question. How many ambassadors and so on we have outside? About 30-something, 20-something? Do we really need them? Do we really need the office of the president? We just spend 90 to 100 million on the house that is not even occupied. So there are too many areas that there have been wasteful expenditure, and we need to address the expenditure part of it. And when IMF comes in, and they will come in, when IMF comes in, that is precisely the point they're going to deal with.
Wait, let's hear this caller. Good morning.
Yes, sir.
What you are in effect saying is that the government is running a social relief program by employing that much public servants, and it has to stop.
Well, thank you, sir. I can't put it better.
But Wade, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
You expect to be a prime minister and live in Trinidad and annihilate the public service?
Right. Let me address.
You expect that to happen? Before you
okay.
I don't want to stay long on the line.
Right. Go ahead.
The question is today, where the rubber hits the road.
Yes.
How are we going to maintain feeder for seniors? How are we going to maintain our roads? How are we going to pay our teachers? How are we going to do all of these things with constantly losing 40% of your revenue, as calculated by people from the IMF, the World Bank, and others? Not just us alone. All of the actuaries and number crunchers of the central bank can tell you we only collected 60%. What are you going to do to improve that? Because if you don't improve it, you have the serious problem, like you are suggesting, that the social relief program of unwanted public servants discontinuing. And what you are talking there is virtual heresy. in Trinidad.
Well,
And listen to what I say.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. You may have followed what transpired in Barbados over the last 10, 15 years, right? When IMF had to intervene, and at first I think they had to let go about 3,000 civil servants, and then quite recently another 2,000 to 3,000 civil servants. And that is inevitable. I'm asking a simple question. How much are you going to tax the unemployed? And Trinidadians are becoming more and more unemployed, and COVID-19 is not helping it. You go and check around now. I don't know when COVID-19 will end, but by and large, we are seeing a world very different than when we entered COVID-19. And you're going to see a tremendous amount of unemployment in the street, and government cannot be taxing the unemployed. It's absurd. And the only way government can tax the unemployed is through indirect taxes such as sales tax and duties and so on, but not PAYE, not taxes on income. And therefore there must be a reduction on all levels of activity to suit our new circumstances. And I've seen this happening over the last 6 years. I'm seeing it coming, and look, it has arrived here, and the only thing that is perhaps camouflaging our economic situation is the amount of money that government is spending at the current time.
Let me hear this caller. Wait. Good morning.
Good morning, Ann.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Siram.
Yes, good morning.
I want to tell Eric, gasoline raised 3 times in this country. We getting 10 times the revenue on gases. We paying 5% on the gas pump, Eric, to do road. Do we have any road, Eric? What the government do with the 5% on gas money? We used to pay $6 a gallon of gas. We're paying $23 a gallon of gas now, Eric. And we're paying 5% on that pump charge for road tax, Eric. Where that money going? Are we driving in road like Bullcat Road, Eric? Where is the money? Who pocket is going in? All they make some $1 billion in heritage. Why the hell all you pay the contractors in heritage now? Why all you pay them? How the people are struggling just like Petrotrain, working and they can't get money to pay the workman? Eric, what do you do with the money? All right.
Thank you, caller.
I think people underestimate the serious pickle we are in, They underestimate it. And I'm asking a very simple question, and perhaps we can start agreeing on a few things. The first thing I would like the population to really examine is that the deficit that they present in a national budget, is that an accurate figure of the deficit? My contention all along is no, because initially they would qualify that deficit by saying net of capital repayment and sinking fund contribution. I estimate sinking fund contribution to be almost $750 million, as well as the capital repayment might be another $5 to $6 billion. So if you're looking at adding 7 to 8, the exact figures can be determined, but by and large you have to double that deficit that they're showing. And where does it show up? It shows up on the amount of loans that we have been borrowing and the quantum of loans. So there are ways to estimate it, but not one economist, not one opposition member in parliament, not one member of parliament questioned the deficit. And I'm saying that those things have been understated and it's coming back to haunt us now.
Hello, good. Oh, we lost that caller there. Go ahead.
Yeah. So therefore, if we are not getting our data correct, how are we going to make accurate decisions? In my estimate again, and somebody reminded me that I had mentioned last year that the deficit for this year will be over $15 billion. I'm glad they remembered. But quite frankly, with now that was pre-COVID-19. Now with COVID-19, the deficit will be more than $20 billion. In the meantime, revenues are declining significantly. First, we start off at 55, then 50, then 45. And quite frankly, as one gentleman mentioned in a presentation just the other day, that there's no money to be had from the oil and gas sector anymore, very little. So when government reduce their revenues from the oil and gas sector, when they reduce the the rest of the economy suffers, and that is the non-energy sector also suffers. Unemployment rate is rising. So if they expect to make up the revenue shortfall by taxing the non-revenue sector, that is the normal corporates and individuals, I'm sorry, they are not in a taxable position. They are scrambling to survive. And under survival mode, adjustments have to be everywhere. Now, one of the caller did mention, are you going to reduce the number of employees and so on? And therein lies the challenge. There has to be reduced. Otherwise, suddenly now, when the banks are lending you all along, suddenly the bank decide, look, I'm no longer going to lend you, and that's the end of it. You hit a brick wall, and at that point, where are you going to get money? Now, prior to this, many years ago, when you devalued the TT dollar, and government US dollar revenues were higher than the US dollar expenditure, then a devaluation puts the government into more TT dollars. But that is not the case today. So that is one of the reasons that the government do not want to devalue the dollar, because it creates an additional burden, financial burden on them, and it's not a benefit to them.
Let's hear this caller here. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning to the panel here.
Yes, morning.
One of the earlier callers, I want to correct him because he said government should remove the subsidy on gasoline and diesel. I want to inform him there is no more subsidy on super and on premium gasoline. There's only a subsidy on diesel. And I think that should be removed. Because when people have their diesel vehicles, what they do, when the wife goes shopping, they stay in the car park and they keep their engine running, in order to run the air conditioning in the vehicle instead of opening the windows. And as a matter of fact, because of the price of oil on the world market now, we are paying a subsidy to the government on premium and super gas. It should be reduced in line with the drop in oil prices. Secondly, I would like to say Saudi Arabia, for example, this year will have a deficit of about 28 billion US in their budget. And they have just trebled, let me repeat it, they have just trebled VAT over there on goods services. So let me come to the house tax. Now, before the house tax, or we stopped paying house tax, I was paying $900 a year to the Chaguanas borough. With the new one now, when I assess it, with my 5-bedroom house, I will have to pay over $1,450, almost $550 more. Now, I live in London, the London borough of Lambeth, which was socialist run. And there, all houses, residential houses, had the same house rate. What we call house tax, they call house rate. So why is it that my neighbor, who has 3 bedrooms, pays less than me, and I have 5 bedrooms, I have to pay more, and he has 10 children in his house producing more garbage for the garbage truck to pick up. He has more trees in his yard to trim them and put it on the road for Chaguanas borough truck to come and pick it up. And yet he's paying less than me. This is unfair. And if you look at government housing, those people, the majority of whom are Afro-Trinidadians, they don't have to pay house tax. Those renters don't have to pay. And if you look, the majority of houses, privately owned houses in TNT, are mainly by Indo-Trinidadians. So is it an Indian tax on houses? We must ask these questions. And I heard rumors that if the PNM comes into power, they are going to raise the age at which you get national insurance from 60 to 65, and they're going to reduce pension. Remember, Manin wants to call the pension a grant, and a grant could be taken away instead of a right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, caller.
Yeah. Thank you for those observations, and I think you've just reinforced my point that is a very inequitable tax, and it's very, very difficult to implement in an equitable manner. And as far as I'm concerned, it's punitive, and that's why I was suggesting that tax be removed. And I'm glad that at least the opposition have put that on the table. There's no question there will be a loss of revenues to the government, but government also has to adjust. What about the mass tens of thousands of persons who are unemployed? How do we address that? And my suggestion all along is that you cannot just be allowing the unemployment rate to rise without the government implementing certain policies that will ensure some sort of job creation at the same time. And we have so many opportunities in Trinidad for job creation, but we have to look internally and see what are those opportunities. And I'll tell you one. We have to ask ourselves, let us look and see what do poor countries do. And recycling is a huge industry for the industrialized nations as well. But we just throw away, and the caller made the point that, look, I've seen people in the UK and so on being very, very frugal with regards to consumption of electricity, consumption of gasoline, consumption of everything else. So, but we have been very wasteful on everything. We must put on 10 bulbs. We don't feel happy if we don't see 10 bulbs, all the bulbs in the night. In Guyana, I know of a family, as they leave a room, they take off the light, etc., etc. So we have not cultivated, we are wasting. Now, I want to make another observation. We have designed all our buildings over the years to be like in North America. In other words, no natural ventilation. And I don't know if you recall, a few years ago, our school air condition went down and they had to close the school. So we have to redesign and refit all our schools and all our public buildings. So we have to be very careful about the whole aspect of living and livelihood, is that we have to alter our ways to match, to suit the income and the level of income that households and government is getting. And that adjustment, we cannot say fire everybody, that look, there's no work for anyone. If you close down Point Lisa, you close down the refinery, sooner or later, whatever oil they're producing, that will also have to be closed down, because our cost of production, $30-40 cannot compete in the world market. So if you close down everything, what are we left with? The only thing we are left with is agriculture, agro-processing, recycling. Those are things we should get cracking now at this point in time.
Listeners, and I see there are a number of callers calling in on the line, but we have to take a top of the hour break, and as soon as we come back, you can call in. Stay tuned, 10 to 1.
Time has come. New 97.5. Make it your choice. Something for everyone. 97.5 FM. Music for you. It's all about you.
97.5 FM, Hot Like Pepper, Multicultural Radio.
Power to the listeners.
Hello, I am Rajendra Rampersad, your PNM candidate for Couva South. I ask for your support to take Couva South into government and to improve the quality of life for all of us. I have specific plans to create jobs, to improve agriculture, to revive Point Lisas, and to develop our infrastructure, also to enhance security. As a person born in Dow Village, California, and started my education at Esperanza Presbyterian School, I want to use my years as a successful businessman and a resident of Couva South to partner with you to make our communities better. I ask for your vote on August the 10th. Vote Rajendra Rampersad, the right choice for a better Couva South. Vote PNM.
Visit Eddie's Pharmacies Limited newest location inside JTA Supermarket, C3 Center, Current Village, San Fernando. They offer blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol, and pregnancy testing, as well as all pharmaceutical products and over-the-counter drugs, along with CDAP prescriptions. Sagicor Caricare International Medical Card, Guardian Life Provider Card, and Republic Bank points are all accepted at their 3 locations of Eddie's Pharmacy Limited. RS Building, Rocha Douglas Road, Barraco, GN Building in Pinal, and C3 Center, Current Village, San Fernando.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all-purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Canupia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
The following is a paid political announcement.
This ad brought to you by the PNM.
PNM is the choice, PNM is the voice, PNM only way on election day is the right choice at the right time. Hands in the air for the parties, hey.
On August 10th, vote PNM. Great is the PNM.
That was a paid political announcement.
Eight minutes after the top of the hour, you're locked on to 10 to 1. To those locked on RCL U975 on YouTube, thank you to Shiva Parisram for having us on YouTube. And of course on the traditional radio band of 975 FM. Let us say hello to this caller. Good morning.
Good morning again. Very quickly.
Yes, good morning.
In one of the budgets recently by Imbert, he said 90% of the people who have casinos and gaming parlors and so on do not pay tax and only 10% paid. As a result of which many casinos have closed down and betting shops and so on, putting people out of work. Now, this is what he did. The 10% who was paying it, he doubled the tax. So if the Board of Inland Revenue couldn't go after the 90%, would Eric and the PNM tell me how the new Revenue Authority is going to recoup that from the 90%? Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. With regards to the gaming industry, I always have a problem with it, you know. There's nothing productive there. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Gambling. And most religion will say, look, gambling is perhaps not an industry to be encouraged. And whilst we are saying, okay, we're having taxes from it. So those are sin industries. Should we be encouraging it at all? And I think one of the biggest mistakes as well, when a previous government, I think it was the UNC under Pandey, when he allowed the opening of the bars. Well, we've sort of legitimized it and by calling the rum shop bars, you know. But by and large, why should that be open on a Sunday when men, and it's mostly men who attend those things. I mean, I think that they ought to be staying home with their family at that point in time. But those sin industries, I'll tell you, it does not create wealth. That's the point I'm making. It does not create wealth for the country.
Let's hear this caller read. Good morning.
Yes, morning, Ms. Duque. Morning, Mr. Siram.
Morning,
all
sir.
the listeners, callers, and sponsors. I'm calling from Belmont.
Morning.
And I'm urging other callers who are trying to oppose what Mr. Siram is saying. They're taking a political position. And they should listen to the gentleman and to listen to Dr. Lushman, because they are not bringing in any politics into their argument. They are bringing logic how we should be governed and how we should govern ourselves. I just want to add on one thing, that more of our people should be trained in productive sector so that they can earn their living and by producing. What we lack in this country is production, and production cannot come without training and machinery and all the rest of it. Because if you don't train, you cannot produce. And this is what we need going forward. Retooling and produce and training. We cannot be short of training. That's why we have so much unemployment and so much people walking about the road looking for work, and they're looking just to clean up or sweep up. Thank you very much, Mr. Sivam.
Yeah, precisely the point. What we have built a society on, upside down pyramid, where few people are working and bringing in the money for the rest to spend. And whilst we say service sector is contributing X amount to GDP, etc., by and large that service sector is depending upon the rail sector. And if that rail sector is virtually disappearing, then there's no rationale for the service sector anymore. For example, Trinidad is overbanked. We have over insurance. And the worst part of it is almost cartelized. In other words, that whilst you expect competition to bring down prices, They just have an unwritten agreement that they can raise fees and so on as they please, and we have no regulators. There's no the central bank is numb. They are unable to regulate the industry, and that is why you have fees and so on increasing as the banks please, and therefore no one is really protecting the consumers in Trinidad. But the point I'm making is that sector depends on the rail sector, and the rail sector is virtually disappearing in front of our eyes. Therefore, you have to ask the question, how come that the service sector is still making money? And you have to look at it as another, as a second government in Trinidad that are really taxing people as they please. And these are things that are not being addressed, and these are bread and butter issues that affect everyone in Trinidad and Tobago and must be addressed.
636-7547, 227-5739 if you wish to get onto the program. 10 to 1, you can call us in there or send your messages on WhatsApp on 378-4975.
Yeah, I think I just want to expand a bit that we have to go back making things again and growing things again. As one person put it, you have to make things that you can drop on your feet, that you can feel, that you can touch, you can trade, you can eat, you can consume. So we need to go back to that kind of industry, and we have to ask the question, what are the resources we have that can make that happen? The argument all along is that it's cheaper to buy. That is true, it's cheaper to buy. When you run out of foreign currency, what are you going to buy it with? What are you going to barter with? Nobody wants anything in Trinidad that you could exchange apart from the oil and gas, which we are at the mercy of the international events, international trends, international risk and so on. But by and large, what is it we have to trade? People are saying, okay, we can trade. Yeah, sure, Tobago has some tourist spots, but in the scheme of things, where do they stand in the world with regards to beaches and so on? You know, so we need to be very careful. That in itself is very fickle. We don't know when the tourism industry in the world is going to pick up again. You saw what's happening with Spain. They opened the borders with Spain and the other countries and with England, and people were starting to visit Spain as tourists, and now they've closed the border because of the extent of the COVID-19. So we are living in very uncertain times, and you have to ask the question: do you make huge capital expenditures into tourism at this point in time? And the answer is no. The answer is no.
Listeners, we will continue that part of the discussion after. I have on the line with me Joseph Tony, who is the coordinator for that Sangre Grande area, the Toco Sangre Grande for the United National Congress. Good morning, Mr. Tony.
Good morning to you and good morning to all your listeners.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Tony.
How are you?
Good morning to you, sir.
How is the campaigning? How is the campaigning coming along?
Very, very exciting, very promising, and I'm very optimistic.
I know you were very successful during the local government elections, being the leader in that campaign in the Toco Sangre Grande area. Do you see the same success emerging out of the general election?
I am seeing the same trends. We had a walkabout, a very simple walkabout on last Friday, Sunday, last Friday, and I was shocked by the turnout and the response that the candidate got from the area we went to. I was very, very, very amazed at how many people came out to walk with her.
Which area was this?
This is the Wabwandi, Sangre Grande, Northeastern Settlement area.
Okay.
So it was quite encouraging.
Is that an area with a lot of poverty? Northeastern Settlement?
Yes, it is an area with a substantial amount of poverty, a substantial amount of amenities that are needed for the people to live a better life.
They lack basic things like running water.
They lack running water, good roads, good lights, proper drainage and proper
infrastructure.
Infrastructure, yes. It's an infrastructural place that needs a lot of infrastructural work. Yes.
Would you say it was a place that... No, Mr. Tony, it was a place that was neglected by the past administration, this current administration, sorry.
Yeah, have neglected it. Is there any place in Trinidad and Tobago that they paid attention to? It appears that they neglected the whole of Trinidad and Tobago. You know, I mean, to say these people have been crying their hearts out to ensure that they get
that their voices be heard.
Yeah, what is necessary to live a humane and civilized life, and their cries are falling on deaf ears.
What are the constituents crying out for most? Is it to just live a decent life?
I think it's unemployment is a big issue here.
Mm-hmm.
Big issue, and of course infrastructural development. Unemployment and infrastructural development. The people would give their arm to ensure that they get that. And we have a good candidate, young Nabila Green. I think because she was born and bred in the countryside, in particular Grand Riviere, which is in the county of St. David, she understands well what the people are going through, and I think she empathizes with them well. She understands their plight, and she is ready and willing to work to ensure that they get relief.
Wait, you have any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Tony.
Yes, sir.
What sort of economy in that area? Agriculture, fishing.
Well, it's a depressed economy. I said that we're trying our best to get jobs for people. It's an agricultural-based economy, but you know, agriculture has been the death knell, as it were, of the PNM. They have virtually killed agriculture, not only in this constituency but throughout the country. And we have a little bit of fishing, and you have some public sector jobs, you have small businesses, but they can only go so far. The unemployment rate in this constituency amongst the young people is very high, and I believe it is above the national average.
Now, I know it's a very beautiful area. Is there opportunity for local tourism there?
It is. It is a place for local tourism, especially between the areas of Matura and Matlot. Right. The turtle watching, for example, you have bases in Matura, Toko, Mission Village, Grand Riviere, and so on, where you can get a lot of local tourists taking care of that. But then the government has to have the infrastructure to encourage the local businessmen so that they themselves can get involved in local tourism. You can't have bad roads, no street lights, no amenities, and expect a person to leave from Digo Martin or Chaguaramas or Chaguanas or wherever it is, come there to watch turtle, and when you leave, your car is totally broken down.
One of the areas I see growth in, given I would call it a post-COVID area environment, is local tourism taking off, and I think that is where whatever little resources the government can actually put together should be spent very, very creatively. And with regards to not just the normal sun and sea and perhaps turtle watching and so on, but also sort of what you call nature tourism. That all these areas.
There are a lot of lovely beaches on that area too. The Toko Beach. You have Grand Riviere. You have San Souci where they do a bit of surfing. You have the Mission where the national volleyball team. They usually go and train there. So there's a lot of areas where you can get local tourism. But I will let you know this. When we had the COVID experience, the government gave $50 million to the hotels in Tobago to prop themselves up as a result of the shortfall that they would have experienced because of COVID. Do you believe that not a single cent was given to the hotels on that area, who also suffered because of the COVID, because they could have no local tourists coming to their hotels, their guest houses, and so on and so on and so on and so on. So one wonders, where is the parity? Where is the equity? Where is the equality in treating with hotels in Tobago and hotels in the county of St. David? Both of which, I beg your pardon, are involved in local tourism. So on the one hand, some people are getting help, and on the other hand, some people are being discriminated against.
No, but this is a flaw for successive government, is that we have not developed policies to deal with such situations in terms of distribution.
Well, that's a question. It wasn't a question of developing a policy. It's a question of discrimination. How could you give $50 million to the hotels in Tobago to say, listen, we have the COVID experience. We know you're going to get local tourists from Trinidad. We want to give you a little step up. But you give none to the hotels in St. David, the county of St. David, who also depend on local tourism, who also depend on the turtle watching experiences, who also depend on guest houses so people can spend 3 or 4 days for a long weekend. What? That's like a policy. That is discrimination.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think we are saying the same thing, is that if there was a clear-cut policy for them to guide them with regards to distribution, and you're correct. So the policy may be whoever makes the most noise get the most. So that may be the policy, but is that an acceptable policy? So that's why
as a government, you have to rise above the noise. You know.
I agree with you.
People may make noise, but you have to say, listen, let us do this thing in an equitable fashion.
That's correct. So
and it irks me to no end that these people have been completely left out.
Right. Now, what are the let's say plans for the first 100 days to, assuming that the UNC gets into power? What are the plans for the next 100 days?
I can't speak for the government the first 100 days. That question is best put to the political leader who shall be the next prime minister.
No, I'm talking about for your area.
For our area,
yes.
certainly we have developed a small manifesto,
right,
which we have presented to the political leader.
Right.
And in particular, we want to see signs that you want to put this constituency on a footing where unemployment, especially among the young people, would not be an issue. We don't think that the URP and the CPEP and the short-term employment opportunity that they have in the regional corporation and so are the answers. You need something far more sustainable. Agro-industries, for example. We need to get the tourism sector. You need to get the infrastructure going to ensure that the tourism sector, the local tourism sector, is off and running. So agro-industries, the tourism sector, the agriculture on a more far-reaching scale, than how it is now. It's sort of like private people doing their own thing and getting no help from the government whatsoever.
Right. Say, for example...
So what I'm saying is that we need to start putting in place. I'm not saying that in 100 days you're going to change the country, but I'm saying that you have to send the signals to the constituents that these matters are on the front burner for the development of Togo Sanigrand.
Well, I think micro agro industries is something you can easily put in place, and so the question the question I'll have for you: have you all identified about 5 of those industries that you could start off?
Well, you have the cocoa industry,
right?
You have the coffee industry,
right? So in terms
of the banana industry, you have the plantain industry, you have the citrus industry. There are many industries that you can get cracking with. The coconuts. Coconuts are everybody wants to drink a coconut water every morning. Surely we can harness the farmers and the agriculturalists in the area and let them know that the government is behind them to ensure that these things become viable and sustainable, and people can proudly, and I use the word proudly, make a living off of these industries.
Well, I'm glad you're thinking along those lines, because I've been promoting that for a number of years, the question of agro-industries. And one of the big problems that we are having in Trinidad, we always think big. We want the best computers in the world. We want
yes. I think that's an error.
That's a big error.
Small. You have to creep before you walk.
Yeah, because micro industries are very prevalent. Places like India, places like Nigeria, various industries in Africa, in China, if you look at the Far East, that is Vietnam and so on, and they're moving ahead. They're moving ahead. We want the best van, the most expensive van to carry some plantains, and that is not necessary. If you notice the mode of transportation,
you had what is the disaster hauler fee, for example, on the PNM route, where people who had nothing to do with agriculture, of course, agricultural lands, and they made a complete mess of it. So that today what should have been a complete farming area, well sustained and well developed in Trinidad, is now a virtual wasteland.
So let's assume you get your wishes. Let's cross fingers on that. You get your wishes, and what sort of employment that you can bring about? Because when one person is employed, it means to say they can feed a family,
Yes, I agree. You see, there is a stigma in Trinidad and Tobago towards agriculture, especially amongst the African community. They don't feel proud to call themselves farmers, or they don't feel proud to call themselves people who are in the agro industries. So there needs to first be an enlightenment period, a educational sort of information sort of thing, that to be a farmer and to be self-sustaining and to be self-employed is something to be proud about. That's the first step. And then you start getting them involved in it and getting them involved in areas of it where they can take care of themselves and their families. But as I said, there are certain sectors of the community who feel ashamed to know that, we planting every day, or we planting bhaji every day, or we planting pak choy every day, or we planting cocoa every day, and we reap cocoa and we make a living off of that. It is a little psychological something that has to go with it.
Yeah, I think that's a very easy problem to solve. Is the question of education, as you say, is one, and secondly is the question of advertisements. If I give a farmer tomorrow, let's say we have $1 million prize for the best farm, and suddenly now you put them on the front burner. So
that's correct. So you have to give incentives to these people
and recognition, yes.
So that there was no, for example, when a fellow in America or India says that he's a farmer, he's highly regarded in the national community, not in Trinidad. They kind of look down upon you, and that is wrong. Because a farmer is a person who can feed a nation, and the person who feeds the nation has to be recognized, has to be given his just due, and that simply is not happening in Trinidad and Tobago. Hence the reason why agriculture is on such a low step in the whole ladder of matters of Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, as far as I could see, and I wrote an article a few weeks ago, I say it is time for farmers to step up. If they don't make their claim, very few people will work on their behalf. But by and large,
and you would notice it's getting less and less and less. Imagine, for example, I think the Prime Minister himself was lamenting about it, that Tobago has to now import food from Trinidad.
Yeah, but we are.
Now tell me something.
What food?
Long ago, Trinidad would import, would be depending on Tobago to get their food. Now it's the other way around. So something is happening in Tobago that is chasing farmers away from the land, even to feed themselves.
But we are importing food from Grenada and so on, the other islands. So Tobago could import direct from Grenada and save the transportation costs, But
the point about it is that we are not encouraging our farmers in the country, and that is bad. It is going to affect us very, very badly.
Okay. But thank you so much.
That's no problem.
And you.
Yes, thank you, Tony. We wish you all the best on your campaign trail. Thank you for your time. That is Joseph Tony. He is the coordinator for that Sandy Grande Toku seat raider, which is a highly competitive seat. Let's hear this caller here. Good morning.
Morning, Ann.
Morning.
Morning to your guest.
Morning, sir.
I'd like to ask this question while Mr. Tony was on the air, but I know the phone.
What is that?
He mentioned that a lot of African youths, etc., don't like to get into agriculture. And shouldn't all governments, make agriculture a priority when it comes to giving scholarships priority should be given to students who want to go into study agriculture rather than going to the traditional lawyer and doctor and pharmacist.
Yes,
and
well,
all this sort of
Wade
thing.
could answer that for you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So that is precisely what I was
That is the
getting
point
to.
he was getting to,
is that
yes.
you give the importance to agriculture, not just in terms of education, but in terms of prizes, and which would include.
You need more encouragement.
No, which would include all the scholarships and so on. And this is where university comes in. If we want to direct the nation in a certain way, we have to give the incentives and the support. And one of it is that we have to convert our university to going back to an agricultural university. We have too many engineers, too many doctors, too many lawyers. I mean, they're falling over themselves, the lawyers. And I'm asking the question, sure, they give us service. And sure,
Do we need all this?
Do we need all of it? And we have to answer those questions.
Let's
we have
hear
to be
this
very
caller.
serious.
Wait. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, and good morning. Mr.
Morning,
Ram.
morning, sir.
It's not a matter of getting something done, it's a matter of fixing what they have spoiled. Mr. Siram, you know that the magnificent buildings on the Savannah were built here when cocoa was king.
Mm-hmm.
Cadbury of England invested in Trinidad because it had the best quality cocoa in the world. We had something called CG, Citrus Grower Association,
Yes,
canning
CGA.
and exporting citrus. We had CG, Coconut Grower Association, manufacturing and exporting oil. So we had cocoa, we had oil, we had coconut, we had citrus, we had all these things. What happened to them?
They just dissolve.
We had a place in the East-West Corridor. So we used to make our own tins, manufacturing tins and cans and packages to tell you the kind of industries we had here. Government policy lick up all the industries here. And people say, I don't know, I don't have the proof, but it is there. They say because certain people have to export and certain people have to shut down because they have to export. We all know the story. Right now it is completely out of hand. It's not a matter of doing something about it, it's about fixing what they have put wrong. Right now, you know in Vancouver, you take a drive through there, the amount of cocoa estates abandoned. You go down to Cedros, the amount of coconut estates abandoned. So let's just ask our state enterprises, our leaders, what are you doing about these industries while people are unemployed and we importing with money we don't have? Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. I mean, you've really summarized our situation. And say, for example, and a professor was explaining to me the case in Ecuador, where their cocoa estates were also abandoned, and the government put together a team of workers that will go from plantation to plantation and work the plantation, and in terms of yield, they said they were getting about 15 times the yield that we get from Trinidad. So that is possible to increase the yield and growing on the same acreage, increase the yield of cocoa, and we can do a lot because we already have a name in the international market, and we can actually, government could actually put together these teams, and the government and the private sector, and this is a good public-private enterprise model, that the government also shares in the profits. And I cannot see why that cannot happen, but we have to have a plan for it, have an implementation plan for it, and get started because there are too many unemployed persons in Trinidad and Tobago.
Let's hear this caller, Wade. Good morning.
Good morning, Anand.
Good morning, sir.
You know, when I hear a person like Joseph Tony speak, I get so upset. When he talk about all of these agriculture, this and that. This man was in government at Robinson in 86, right? And I don't know how much years again he needs to be a politician to say and to do what he says. He spent a lot of time in government, right? So these people cannot come with this rhetoric about what agriculture needs. I think Trinidadians and Tobagonians have to get a little strength within themselves, right? Now, I'm not saying he basically campaigning for you to vote UNC. I'm not saying to go and vote UNC or PNM. No. Because every government that goes there put agriculture in the back burner because the people that they represent just will go and vote for them anyhow you take it. But agriculture is the window of opportunity for any country to solve its labor problems. Mm-hmm. So Joseph Tony, he reminds me of the Democratic Party in the U.S. who clamoring for new politics and new change and this and that, and they have a 70-something-year-old politician running as the presidential candidate. The leader of the House is a lady, right, who could barely speak. She has to bite lip all the time. And then the leader of the Senate, right, is another old guy. But they want change, and they want all of which amount to 100 and something years in the Congress of the U.S. If people in Trinidad and Tobago want difference, they can't be doing the same thing over and over. Thank you.
I agree with you. And the position is, the circumstances actually drives the future of a country. And it is the leaders now to identify where, if left on its natural state, where the country is going to go, and grasp that opportunity and lead the country in that particular direction. And whilst Mr. Tony is one individual in the whole scheme of things, any change in direction must come from the sample, the leadership of the government. And that is where it is so important that the leader fully understands and not just depend on the subordinates to give direction, but rather to understand what direction needs to be taken and take leadership for that direction. In other words, we cannot have a leader in government who will just depend on the subordinates, but rather they have to take leadership. And that is extremely important. So if the leader comes tomorrow and said, look, agriculture is number one, it cannot take the back burner for the simple reason we no longer have a front burner. We no longer, just imagine for a moment that oil and gas is virtually floundering. So what do we replace that with? And that is the big challenge. And there's no question about agriculture, agro-processing. There's no question about local tourism. There's no question about recycling. There's no question about the alternate energy, alternate sources of energy for Trinidad. We have to go in that direction, and a clean environment and an educated population. We need to do that. So if we say, okay, that is where we are going, we have to now influence or structure our learning institutions to go along that direction, supported by the media, that's the televisions and other forms of media, and let us go in a particular direction that will be beneficial for all of us. Otherwise, we are left with, at the end of the day, if you wipe out oil and gas, we have nothing here. And what do? We become a beggar nation. And I don't think that is where we want to be.
Let's hear this caller here. Good morning and welcome to 10 to 1.
Yes, sir.
In 1986, when Joseph Tony was our government minister, and we had oil and gas, and we that was able to drive the economy. And today, that is not, the oil and gas cannot drive the economy, and he's now, saying that we need to invest heavily in agriculture. What is wrong with that? What is wrong with that? A man could change his mind because of the circumstances. You can't come and say, Joseph Tony was there for so long, and he didn't talk about agriculture, but he's talking now. Look, Dr. Rowley said, the children who get in laptops, they were done at for 4 months. Today I'm hearing him talking about digital age and trying to help the children digitally. You understand? The candidate, the PNM candidate, Miss Penelope Beckles, is talking about making Arima a smart city and all this sort of thing. And those are people who criticize the laptops and all this sort of thing. So people can change their minds because of this, the change in what's happening in the country and the change in circumstance.
Yeah, you remind me what Mahatma Gandhi said, because he was asked as well. He said, Panditji, why are you changing your mind on certain things? Last year you said A and this year you're saying B. He said only a dead man and a fool don't change their minds. So that's fine. We go along. I'm saying whilst the people on the ground might have certain ideas, say for example that constituent Toko and so on, that's fine. But I'm saying that change will only occur if the leadership accepts that strategy and ensure that it is implemented. So that's the point I was making. So it's good. So that's why I had asked Mr. Tony, exactly what are your plans for the next 100 days.
Yes.
What specific? You cannot just, at this point in time, you cannot go to the electorate and say, oh, we're going to have agriculture, we're going to have agro-processing.
Without
Tell
a
me
plan.
what you're going to do. Tell me what it is. And I heard him mention that they have a information memorandum. So that's a good start.
Let's hear this caller here. Good morning.
Yes, Anna, sorry to call back there, but the guy missed my point, In 1986 in the campaign, before the NAR won the government and before Tony was a minister, the campaign has always been that we need to invest in agriculture. Every single general election, every party and every leader tell you about investing in agriculture, right? And Joseph Tony, when he was in government after that, did nothing. So he cannot, while he must help the campaign, he cannot be the spokesperson for the thing that he never was able to implement when he was in government. The politics of today have got to change where you implement what you say. When the PNM won the 2015 election, in their manifesto had nothing about shutting down Petrotrin, right? So when they got into government, they shut it down. Now, why such an important decision couldn't make the manifesto of the PNM, right? So people, these sycophants who follow political parties, right? I am not talking about they can't change their mind. Of course, everybody needs to change their mind. But these are things that he and his party and whoever he represented have always said on every political party. The football in politics is agriculture because that is where the solution. But the people that control and the people that pay for the campaign, who are the importers of these products, make sure that these politicians don't have investments in agriculture because they have to continue to import.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, there are powers that don't want any changes. However, there are certain trends that we cannot ignore as well. And the question of foreign exchange, when that virtually goes to zero, and I'm not seeing, look at foreign exchange as a gas tank. I'm seeing it leaking that we're using, but we're not replenishing that tank. And therein lies our predicament. So there are also other trends in the world today that where food supplies and so on might become scarce on the international market. I don't know if you're following what's happening to China. They're one of the items that they sell. In fact, they're a large exporter of a variety of food. Now, all their lands that were cultivated by grain and so on has been decimated by floods. So they now are going to utilize whatever foreign reserves that they have. They are going to utilize that for importation of food, and therefore it will dry up the supply of food on the international market, and Trinidad is not gearing itself up for that, and therein lies a big problem. So I'm saying the international trends and local trends are moving in a direction where we can no longer afford to ignore agriculture as a base.
Let's hear this caller here, Wade. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Anne and Mr. Siram.
Good morning.
When it is the NAR was in government, they had started cooperative with communities, and they started to revitalize the estates of the cocoa, and they had pineapple production. A lot of areas started it, and in the community they had the cooperative that was doing a lot of work. If it is the cocoa industry was shut down for a long while and a lot was abandoned, it is obvious it will take time to revitalize, clean, and do more planting. Things don't happen overnight. And then when it is 1991, the NAR lost the election. So the thing about it, the PNM didn't continue it. They just abandoned it and put their concentration on the URP program, where it is a quick fix. And the thing about the quick fix is to keep the people, on it is giving them something and handout. So the thing about it, planning is always in when you want to make your government work. But when it is people doesn't understand the planning and understand how it is it will work, you will just, okay, it's not a quick fix, and they're not putting out their hand to get it is to give their supporters. The thing about it, when it is the People's National Movement supporters are being educated, they will vote them out. But they just go blindly, most of them, and they support them, and not it is by plans and programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, in my view, whether the politicians actually go along with certain things that are necessary for Trinidad and Tobago. It will just take a little longer for the population to actually move in that direction. And I don't know if you are seeing now that certain industries that were never there before are cropping up. Simple things like shoe repairs and so on. How many cobblers we are seeing now in the market? Far more than before. And that's when a country is becoming poor, as we are. We have to go back into repairs and maintenance. And yes, we have to do it. And for example, why buy a new fridge when you could fix your for 8 and 10,000 when you can fix it for
800?
For 800. So what those industries, we have to be very cognizant of the particular trends. And if I ask someone today, what are the major trends in Trinidad and Tobago? You have to have, first of all, before you determine trends, you determine a forecast where you see things are going, and therein lies the collection of trends.
Let's hear this caller here. Good morning.
Mr. Sriram,
Yes,
thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Sriram, you made the point about food production in China, and even outside China.
Of course.
Food production, it depends on migrant workers.
Mm-hmm.
COVID sent home migrant workers, you know.
That is true. In India, that has happened.
All over the world, migrant workers are a thing of the past now, and then that food chain, the transport, the shipping, you have a lot of vessels with people who on COVID and they ground the vessels. So we have a problem in that food chain. That food chain has some broken links all along the way. Unless we understand that we have to feed ourselves first, we're in trouble. Thank you very much.
Well, you know, this is where I'm saying the quality of leadership is absolutely important. For example, I didn't need to put together a committee of 22 and 23 to tell me what to do. I, as a leader, I have been in politics for 40 years or whatever. By now, I should know exactly what to do and where's my contingency plan. My contingency plan is very simple. Let us go and plant food. We'll decide on what exactly to be planted. But in the meantime, let's start plowing the land. And my first reaction is, don't set up a committee. You're wasting valuable time. Rainy season is coming. That's a few months ago. Let us start plowing up about 10,000 acres and set up another committee to tell us what exactly to plant, so we can be independent. But the argument against all of that is saying, wait a minute, it's cheaper to import. Let us close that border. Close the border. Forget about this importing food anymore. We don't have the foreign exchange. What we need to do, what are the basic staples that we can survive in as a country, and start planting it.
Please hang up. We missed that caller. There are listeners and callers. You can continue to call us in on 636-7547-227-5739. You're listening to 10 to 1 with Ann Duki and Red Seram, my co-host here this morning. Fred, continue.
Yeah, we also have to determine what are the foods available in Trinidad and how can we repurpose some of it. We already know we can make curry mango. That's great. With ripe mangoes, we can make things to drink. And mangoes itself is very, very healthy. But we have mangoes wasting.
Someone said that to me. Too much mangoes are wasting in
So
this
we can
country.
have gatherers. We can put nets under these mango trees and collect it, and let's utilize it for valuable food. Say, for example, pawpaw. You can make curry pawpaw with the green. So all those recipes are available for us to use.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Belmont here again.
Yes.
Now, instead of taking what the party hacks up to say, the government should call the researchers of the university who have studied the topic and ask them to study what kind of food we could grow here that we haven't been growing, and what kind of technology we have to support the industry, to can them or to preserve them or whatever. Unless and until we rely more on the University of the West Indies with all the researchers and all this. Look at a simple thing like crime. You're going to tell me that the University of the West Indies cannot intervene to come on this road and find out what is causing crime and how many mad people committing crime and what should happen and what they should do to curb the amount of mad people in the road just killing people, and the amount of young people on the road that are not trained and they need jobs. We need a university to come and put a package to inform us what we should do to go forward. Otherwise, we're like three blind mice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller.
No, that is true. We are not utilizing our university to the fullest, and there's no real integration I'm aware a lot of work is being done by the Cocoa Research Center at university, but by and large, we have not really advanced it to commercialize it on a major scale.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, and Mr. Siram, just as a sidebar, the gentleman, Mr. Belmont, mentioned a university. And if we are using our university people, we would have saved 500 million, $500 million that we paid for a rapid rail study. The PNM paid $500 million to the former chairman of their party, Mr. Lenny State Company, to do a study on whether we could accommodate a rapid rail in the East-West corridor. And some months ago, a university lecturer said, we cannot accommodate a rapid rail there because we don't have the length and we don't have the breadth. And he said that's free of charge. But we spent $500 million give to the PNM chairman to come up with a study. And today now, they are telling us that we cannot put a rapid rail there because we don't have the length and we don't have the breadth. And the university lecturer told us that free of charge. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, free advice have no value, you know. People don't value that at all. In fact, that's an unfortunate thing because you can get a lot of valuable advice from people who are concerned, who are nationalists. And by and large, governments don't even want to pay for it. But somebody from abroad, they'll come in and they'll ask you.
They'll pay a big consultancy fee.
Pay a big consultancy fee for things like that. Yeah.
Hello, good
Unfortunately.
morning. And Mr. Sriram made the point of mangoes and something. That threw my mind back to McCain's.
To what?
McCain's.
McCain's in Canada and the United States of America.
Yes.
They concentrate orange juice, put it in a can.
Yes.
You buy the can, you take it home, you drop in a jug of water, and you have a jug of orange juice. You talk about mangoes. We go mangoes, soursop, papaya. The amount of fruits we have here that we could do a concentrate that in a can we could export, and it's exotic fruit. You drop it in a jug of water, and you have a jug of juice, tropical juice. This is good business. You made a very salient point there, but are we thinking? Are our leaders thinking? Do they care really, Mr. Siram?
But this is where hear what I'm saying. Eh? All these good ideas have to be put on the table. Government has to look at it. Private sector has to look at it, prioritize. One of our major impediment to progress and to go into agriculture is our exchange rate. Our overvalued dollar, because somebody will bring the argument, look, it's cheaper to buy it from abroad. And that is true, it's cheaper. So what? But if you don't have the foreign exchange, what are you going to buy it with? And we have to plan now for the day we do not have foreign exchange. And I think one of the caller keeps making the point. Let us use that scarce foreign exchange to diversify our economy and spend money on particular machinery and so on, so that we could be self-sufficient. If the world shuts down with a world war, and the world is shutting down on this invisible third world war, is that we can still eat and be healthy and happy.
Yeah, and it's really cheaper because of bad management, you know. Because if we look at the system that you had in the Carney Limited, the sugar industry, you had estates, Bronte Estate, Diamond Estate, Picton Estate, whoever estate. And each estate had a manager managing that estate and its workers. If we do the same thing in food production and fruit production, we could have a very profitable industry, cheap labor, everybody employed throughout the year instead of where the Carney Limited was seasonal work. All through the year they're working, and you're producing all through the year, and we could have export there. So thank you, I'm listening, sir.
Yeah, thank you, caller. I think some very good suggestions are being made, and I wish the policymakers can actually listen and be serious. I agree with the other caller that agriculture has been the lips of everyone when they're in government, but nothing is actually being done. And I think the time for not doing anything has passed.
Hello, good day. Caller, are you there?
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good
morning
day.
To your guest.
Yeah, good morning.
Hello?
Yes,
good
you're
morning.
live.
We're
Go
hearing.
ahead.
Yeah. And, you know, every time we hear on this topic of agriculture come up, and we just keep on going over the same thing over and over, and nobody really don't take time to really analyze and figure out what is really the situation with agriculture in Trinidad and Tobago. And as usual, we reach nowhere. Now, there are two ways that food reaches our table in this country: through export and through our local farmers. Now, in order for agriculture to be viable in Trinidad and Tobago, we had to protect our local farmers. We had to ensure that our local production of food is viable, it is feasible, and it brings a profit to the farmers that they could invest and make their businesses more bigger and grow. That don't happen in Trinidad and Tobago. Look like, for instance, right now we have tomatoes in a big way in the country. Then, well, it's only because of the COVID situation right now we ain't bringing in imports. But before that, all these times, you would see we have to always compete with the foreign importers that are bringing food. Now, it is very difficult today in this era that we live in to get market outside of Trinidad to export food, because every country now have technology. They have all the information they need now to grow food differently than long ago in the sugar and the cocoa and coffee era. They have technology, they're using all different methods and they're growing food and things. What we need to do in Trinidad and Tobago is to reduce our import bill. And that in turn would generate, come like we're spending $7 billion right now importing food. If we cut down that to $3 billion, you will see the big difference agriculture would pay. We mightn't have the market outside, but we will be able to save that foreign exchange and do other things in the country. A perfect example of what happened about this is what took place in Qatar. When all the bordering countries closed off their airspace and Qatar wasn't able to bring in food into the country, they were only producing 10% of their food locally. Right now they're producing over 70% in Qatar, and it makes so much of a difference right now. Qatar looking to see if they could go 100% and look at where they are, because they're investing in technology and they're bringing people from all over the world to make sure that they can produce their own food, so that this situation that took place down there could never happen to them and leave them vulnerable anymore. And whosoever speaks about agriculture in Trinidad really need to sit down and understand agriculture. And all this nonsense about we could plan this and we could plan that, that is the same thing like tourism right now. When we had the opportunity to make Tobago one of the best tourist destinations in the Caribbean, when the people come in, we beating them, we raping them, we robbing them, we abusing them, we doing everything. When they pull out now we're looking to send back out Olive Branch to see how much foreigners we could get back in this country. If we don't think and put things in place, we could never move forward in this country. And to underline all this, the reason for everything that is happening in this country is because of the PNM government and the policies that they put. Have a good morning and enjoy the rest of your program.
Thank you, caller.
Well, I must say that all the governments have witnessed so far just given lip service to agriculture, just not the PNM. So I think that we can look back in the past and start to lay blame. But I think more importantly is that we as citizens must realize where we have to go and let us start making that happen now. And I'm glad you raised the point about Qatar. If they are 70%, that's excellent. Many countries are in the 90s. Israel, in spite of the significant desert all around in the country, they're about 90% self-sufficient in food. We just import, our agriculture, we probably import over 90%, which is madness. I mean, after so many years in such a lush country where we have no sign of lack of rainfall, no sign of unarable lands. So I think we should be also aim for 90%, 100%, and we must make that a national policy to be self-sufficient in food. And it's very simple, very simple. Believe me, it's very simple. How much rice do we consume? We can figure that out at about 30,000 tons. Okay, how much land do we require to plant rice? I know the Minister of Finance said we need acreage larger than Trinidad, which is not true. We just need about 15,000 acres. So if you don't have basic data, where are we going? So if at the policy level, the government level, they are misinformed, then we are not going anywhere. We're not going to make any decision. But if we as a citizen realize it's just 15,000 acres, where can that be allocated? Which are the best lands for rice production? And get that going. And we say, look, within 5 years, we want to be self-sufficient in rice. And after that, we are not going to allow the importation of rice, period. The argument is going to say, oh, look, we can import it cheaper from Guyana
Guyana.
or cheaper from. We have to say it doesn't matter. It does not matter what is the cost of production of local rice. We try and minimize it, but by and large, give a good return to the farmers, make it more efficient in terms of production, and let's get going with it and protect the local industry. All over the world, countries protect their farmers. If you look at Europe, they protect their farmers.
Let me just read this one statement before we take a top of the hour break, Wade.
Yes.
On RCL on YouTube, one person here is saying the sugar production can come back in TNT because the equipment is more efficient today. Folks don't have to cut out cane manually. We can rise up, but this political game is a snatching us from our hands between each party. It's just about 12 noon today in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. 10 to 1. The calls keep coming in, but caller, you can call us just after the top of the hour break. We have to take a short commercial break, and we will be right back for the final hour of 10 to 1.
Time has come. New 97.5. Make it your choice. Something for everyone. 975 FM. Music for you. It's all about you.
U97.5 FM, Hot Like Pepper, Multicultural Radio.
Power to the listeners.
Kathy's Cool Spot Enterprises Limited, number 86 Pearville, opposite the TSTT Exchange in Mayaro. We specialize in all types of meats, dry goods, liquor, beverages, ice, LPG, gas, motor oils, stationery supplies, and photocopying. We also provide rentals of tents and chairs for your every occasion. Come in and take advantage of our specials at reduced prices on liquor, wholesale, and retail. We are open every day, even on public holidays, for your convenience. TT Post services are available here at Kathy's Cool Spot Enterprises Limited of number 86 Pearville, Mayaro, where our friendly staff will be happy to serve you.
KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canupia, for all your plumbing and electrical supplies, water heaters, filters, and water pumps, plus all parts for Gould, Pentax, and Leo pumps. Choose from leading brands such as Cooper, Varma, BT Sino, Leviton, and General Electric. Call 665-6954 for more information. KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canupia.
Hello, I am Rajendra Ramprasad, your PNM candidate for Couva South. I ask for your support to take Couva South into government and to improve the quality of life for all of us. I have specific plans to create jobs, to improve agriculture, to revive Point Lisas, and to develop our infrastructure, also to enhance security. As a person born in Dow Village, California, and started my education at Esperanza Presbyterian School, I want to use my years as a successful businessman and a resident of Couva South to partner with you to make our communities better. I ask for your vote on August the 10th. Vote Rajendra Ramprasad, the right choice for a better Couva South. Vote PNM.
Welcome back, listeners and viewers. It's 5 minutes after the top of the hour on 10 to 1. Now, today, Wade, The Guardian did a poll, and their poll said that a third party has no impact or influence. We have on the line with us Mr. Louis Lee Singh, part of the Better United, which is a group of smaller parties, and Mr. Lee Singh, he leads the Port of Spain Progressives. Is that right, Mr. Lee Singh?
Port of Spain Peoples.
Yes, Port of Spain Peoples, right. And I was chatting with him a bit and asking him, how do we feel about that? And let him share that with our listeners here. Louis, did you see the poll today?
I saw what has been said, and I'm familiar with the information. But in a sense, I am not daunted at all by what the pollsters are saying. The road that we have chosen, which is to say, to fix Trinidad and Tobago, is not going to ever be an easy road. And so the people who represent parties other than the two major parties ought not to be daunted by that. The reality is that change is always a difficult assignment. And unless we are able to get the rank and file of the population to accept that its fortunes could be placed or could, as it were, be found in another model, we would continue to have this uphill task in finding a space in the parliament. But as I said before, it is not something to gawk at. And may I say also that there is still some time left. There's 2 weeks left. And you never know what comments people may say or people may make that could push people in another direction. Bear in mind, we have a situation where the two major political parties have, as it were, entrenched positions in some constituencies. And so there are constituencies that are not likely to be as solid either for one party or the other. I believe in such situations, anything is possible in terms of the results and the outcome of the election.
Louis, you are not fighting a seat this time around, is that correct?
That is correct. The Port of Spain People's Movement took a position that we certainly did not have the time. We fought every seat in Port of Spain, all 12 districts in the local government election. And it was our very good intention to begin our work programs just after Carnival, because you would recall the local government election was held in December, then we went into Carnival, then we went into Christmas, and then into Carnival. And so our program of work was scheduled to begin just after Carnival, and then we were visited with COVID-19 International, which in a sense kept everyone out of the trenches. We would have learned from our lessons in December, and therefore we did not feel, given the resources available to us, and not having done the preliminary work that is necessary, we would sit out this election and build ourselves into the next local government election.
Ved?
Yeah, Mr. Lee Singh, this is Ved Siriram. Pleased to have you on the station. The question of urban renewal and urban development, I suppose that would be a priority on your mind. And I know the gentleman at Kirkwaite, he did mention that he can actually make Laventille the breadbasket. I think that was his boast. And I was very curious to know whether you're familiar with whatever plans he has, and whether it is possible, and what sort of resources will be required to bring that about.
Well, let me say to you, I think Kirkwaite has done an exceptionally good job in aligning people's minds, particularly the people in Laventille West,
yes,
to the possibility of themselves feeding themselves.
Yes.
In fact, he initiated a hydroponic program, which, to my amusement, I saw Fitzgerald Hines visit, and as it were, did not give credit to Waite and his movement for doing what they had done to assist. Thankfully, the people in that community came to Kirkwaite's defense and underscored the fact that it was, in fact, a project that had been initiated by Waite. Now, I think what Kirkwaite is proposing is that instead of people relying on other people to feed them, that we all begin to feed ourselves. And he is speaking to the issue of food security in the country, which, for reasons best known to themselves, I don't think the government has underscored nor initiated any serious and meaningful action since the COVID has come online. When one contemplates that countries across the world, big countries, are now becoming protective and are saying, well, we're not, for example, Russia says we're not exporting our wheat other than to 2 or 3 countries. It simply means that the whole question of food security must become a priority. And so Trinidad and Tobago has to begin to prioritize how it is going to feed itself, whether in fact we are going to take available lands and based on what the land can produce, how do we, as it will, ensure that the land produces the maximum amount of, whether it is cassava, whether it is corn. I mean, sugarcane is a grass, corn is a grass. And so the question is, do we, as it will, begin to utilize some measure of our carrying lands to grow corn? Mm-hmm. Because corn in itself is a staple. And so whether you make flour with it, whether you make corn syrup with it, whether you provide it as a staple on the plate, I don't know. But I'm merely saying to you, these are things that we have to begin to address and think about. That is what Kirkwood is doing, but he is doing it in the sense that he understands the land and the terrain available. Mm-hmm. And so if he is speaking to hydroponics, it is important. As to the cost and the details associated with it, I don't know that those costs are available to anyone. I certainly know that the government has not done anything in the 5 years to, as it will, provide for food security for this country. And that must become a priority of the country.
Yeah, because I was quite fascinated by the idea of urban agriculture, and I know in other parts of the world it's very prevalent, and it's becoming more prevalent, in fact, and that also calls for the design of the houses and so on to accommodate that. So it's a holistic approach to it. So I think it's wonderful that the subject is on the table for discussions and actual implementation. The other point I had is a general feeling. I don't share it, having traveled the Caribbean a bit and seen, is that Afro-Trinidadians are not conducive for agricultural work. Could you comment on that?
Well, let me say to you, Trinidadians may not be conducive to most things because nobody has pointed them in that direction.
Yes.
We have lived in a society where if you say to me one thing that Trinidadians are conducive to, I'll say to you is corruption. and the reason why it is conducive to corruption it is because the founding father of the country never, as it were, investigated, charged, tried, and convicted neither O'Halloran nor Pravat.
Mm-hmm.
If Dr. Williams had done that way back when, there would be no culture of corruption in this country. So that my point is this: discipline is not something anyone is born with. Discipline is something that you learn. And if you can begin to discipline our society, we would begin to treat with a lot of the weaknesses and the challenges. And this country could truly become one of the great little nations in the world. We have all the ingredients, but make no bones about it. We have frittered away all the wealth that has come our way. And so we must now, as it were, dig in deep and begin to understand that by the sweat of our brow thou shalt eat bread.
Now, do you are you familiar with whether agriculture is taught in the urban schools?
I don't think it is a subject that is given the kind of priority or importance that is required.
But if you had influence, how important do you think that is for all the schools, I think, primary as well as secondary schools?
Not only is it important, but you see, I think Trinidad and Tobago has got to begin to do some revolutionary things. For the last 20 or 30 years, I have been a voice in the wilderness calling for compulsory national service for people who are not gainfully employed in work or study between the ages of 15 to 25 years. It is because we have so many people who drop out of school. There is a stat which no one speaks to in this country. Every year at common entrance, 19,000 children enter the secondary school system. But every 5 years, only 9,000 graduating. What happens to the other 10,000? And so the other 10,000 are out there doing all kinds of things that have nothing to do with productivity and discipline and building of a nation. And we've got to begin to treat with all these issues. So it's not a question only about whether the schools teach agriculture. It has to do with what kind of discipline we are imposing upon the society. If we were to become a disciplined society, we would be spending less money on national security, less money on health, less money on education, because the violence in this society is impacting all these line items on the national budget.
The other area that I felt that was so important for Port of Spain and its environment is the question of recycling, because I was quite heartened actually when one of the reporters was interviewing one of the inhabitants at Sealots, and he said, look, we need for recycling, and he did mention that, and it struck me because in my view all along that is what is required to put the community to productive work, but in a safe environment. In other words, you just don't go and burn certain things and breed in a very toxic environment. But whether government should put together some small plants, but in a very safe environment for recycling of a variety of waste that are actually dumped. So I think, and we are dealing here with micro industries, not large industries. So I think that is an opportunity. I don't know if you all have discussed it and developed that idea.
Well, I would say this to you, that the whole question of waste management has always been something that this country has treated with as though it is not important. I remember upon one of my visits overseas, I came back from South Korea with a full program which I made available to the government. And that program showed that you could build a waste management plant that could take all manner of material, incinerate it, and the byproduct, the end product of the incineration process, you would have the kind of material that you can use for constructing pavements and road paving and things like that. Boy, I don't know if it is a plan by somebody not to make the country a better place, but a plant like that is certainly something that we should have gone for rather than that wastewater management program. But sometimes, a country has to go through its pains, and Trinidad has gone through so many pains. I think the time is coming near when the country is going to wake up and say, listen, you know what happened? We don't want that kind of nonsense again. We don't want no more fraud and corruption. We don't want people with false promises. My biggest fear, though, is that people are losing confidence in the ballot. Whenever that happens in a society, we know historically what happens. And so let us hope this election illustrates and increase, as it were, confidence in the ballot.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, because I think times have changed from 5 years ago and 10 years and 15 and 20 years. And I think the question of the economic squeeze has never been so bad. Has never been. I think we've lived...
People speak about the government performing with the COVID, but the question is, what did this government really do in the years prior to COVID? The country was in collapse. We had a situation where the Tobago Sea Bridge had crashed, and so Tobagonians and people who had suffered from that ought not to forget that. that reeks of a level of incompetence and the lack of professionalism that is to be underscored. We must never go that road again. It is too important.
Well, we can't ignore the debt burden, because the debt burden, we are long past our capacity to repay even the interest. We are borrowing money to pay interest, and I think that is going to surface in a very big way next year.
Well, it's interesting though that while debt burdens and what have you become major issues to countries such as ours, small countries such as ours, you have big countries like the United States with debt burdens that are unparalleled. And so the question is, if you're carrying a debt burden, what are the benefits these debts are bringing to the country? We cannot be borrowing money to do nothing. We cannot be borrowing money for people to steal. And this brings us to the whole issue of water and water for all. And the reasons why a man like Robert Lee Hunt, who comes to the cabinet with a solid plan on water, finds himself outside the cabinet and outside any influence in his party. You follow?
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
And I can only assume that it is because the loans that would have been raised through the IDB, and under the IDB there are stringent controls over disbursement, and people don't want to, as it will, be tied into stringent controls on the disbursement of money.
Well,
Trinidad is fraught with corruption, and we must bring it to an end.
Well, we're coming soon to the point where banks will refuse to lend. So we're coming to that point, and I think we've all felt a bit of generosity as a result of COVID-19. But next year is a totally different kettle of fish. And secondly, I think we've been justifying our high level of borrowing by looking at Japan and looking at America. Those are very, very different situations, and they are creating their own bubbles that could burst at any moment. But I think we have to look at our situation by itself and say whether we now have the capacity to borrow again. And exactly your point is, what have we been doing with the borrowed money? Because we have been using it for recurrent expenditures, and that, if there's no return, it doesn't make sense, economic sense.
There's too much inefficiency. I think we've got to begin to think about the situation. We can't, a country the size of Trinidad and Tobago, do not require 23 and 33 ministries. To set up a ministry costs tremendous money. Think about it. Every time the government changes, some person comes and decides we want to put a ministry at this, a ministry at that. We should establish in law that there are 12 ministries, and we give the incoming party a leeway to, as it will, create 3 ministries, so 15 ministries. We don't need more than that. The government of Trinidad and Tobago is too big. What we have to do is to encourage people to create and to invent. We need more patents coming out of Trinidad. We need people to be more creative. We need to, as it were, introduce the kind of systems, both in education and otherwise, that would allow people to think and to make quantum leaps as a result of that ability to think.
No, I can't agree with you more. We have a bloated administration, and quite frankly, I think they have over 100 subsidiaries one way or the next. And it just doesn't make sense. We can no longer afford it because the income from the gas and oil sector is virtually dried up, as we've seen.
Well, I have no objections to a state enterprise if it is not only paying its way, but if it is making a contribution to the development of the country.
That is true.
But too many of these enterprises are, as it were, loss-making companies, and that is an indictment on administration and leadership. You can't keep something going when it is losing money. You've got to control it. And one of the ways to control it is to do this kind of evaluation on a consistent basis. And so we've got to move, and we've got to find a level of governance that inquires and evaluates to ensure that what we are doing in the best interest of the country.
No, I agree, but the general definition of a state enterprise is a loss-making concern, because out of that 100, probably 1 or 2 might be NGC. Even NGC has gone into a loss-making position now, which, it's quite disastrous for the country. But by and large, I think the administration.
What is remarkable?
Yes.
I am advised that TSTC, that used to be one of the most lucrative state companies, is now not doing well, largely because the Ministry of National Security has refused to pay its indebtedness to TSTT. When that happens, bear in mind TSTT is part of the NEL share that is traded on the stock exchange. And so the government is impacting the share on the stock exchange by encouraging losses, by, as it were, generating losses in TSTT. These are things and why is the stock exchange not taking some kind of action on that? I am saying to you, everywhere you turn in this country, there are reasons why we fail. And when you point it out, you become, as it would, they label you traitor and an enemy. I think the country has got to begin to ask the legitimate questions that will allow it to breed and to jump the curve and become a good country.
Yeah, you touch on a very important point, and this is where the deficit I've been claiming all along, and I said it earlier in earlier programs as well, is at the national budget we are understating our deficit. So therefore, if we do not have accurate accounting of our accurate records of our accounting, then how are we managing a business? The deficit is not 5 billion, as they said. In my estimate, was over 12 billion, and quite frankly, for 2020, might be over $20 billion. So how can a government exist with 20 billion? They can only do that by way of borrowing, by selling assets, and the third way of getting funds is not paying their bills. And therein lies, if you are managing a company and a board of directors know they cannot pay their bills, then they should not be entering into any other contract, because you're managing an insolvent entity, and that is precisely what is happening with government. And with regards to under the company law, you knowingly managing an insolvent company, there are serious penalties for that, and I think that is where accountability comes in.
You're absolutely correct.
Mr. Lee Singh, thank you for your time and for joining us. We wish you all the best in the foreseeable future on the political arena. I will call you back at some point again during my show to discuss this issue of recycling in Port of Spain.
Look forward to that. And
yes.
But may I say to you, I think we should really be praying for ourselves, because this country cannot afford to make the same mistake that we made in the past. We've got to fix it. And have a great day to your listeners. I hope everyone listening as we speak today have a plate of food before them.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Okay.
That is Louis Lee Singh, the former mayor of Port of Spain, speaking to us about the impact a third party would have in the political arena. He went in to discuss with Wade the impact of agriculture and, very importantly, the issue of recycling, which came up in our discussions this morning. Wade, let us take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we have the last half hour of 10 to 1.
Hello, I am Rajendra Rampersad, your PNM candidate for Couva South. I ask for your support to take Couva South into government and to improve the quality of life for all of us. I have specific plans to create jobs, to improve agriculture, to revive Point Lisas, and to develop our infrastructure, also to enhance security. As a person born in Dow Village, California, and started my education at Esperanza Presbyterian School, I want to use my years as a successful businessman and a resident of Couva South to partner with you to make our communities better. I ask for your vote on August the 10th. Vote Rajendra Rampersad, the right choice for a better Couva South. Vote PNM.
The following is a paid political announcement.
This ad brought to you by the PNM.
PNM is a PNM power. PNM, a positive healing power. PNM, moving forward together. PNM, introducing Rishi, my brother. All of
August 10th. Vote PNM. Great is the PNM.
That was a paid political announcement.
Kathy's Cool Spot Enterprises Limited, number 86 Pearville, opposite the TSTT Exchange in Mayaro. We specialize in all types of meats, dry goods, liquor, beverages, ice, LPG, gas, motor oils, stationery supplies, and photocopying. We also provide rentals of tents and chairs for your every occasion. Come in and take advantage of our specials at reduced prices on liquor, wholesale, and retail. We are open every day, even on public holidays, for your convenience. TT Post services are available here at Kathy's Cool Spot Enterprises Limited of number 86 Pearville, Mayaro, where our friendly staff will be happy to serve you.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors and roti makers. Try our high quality unbleached bromate free all purpose and baker's flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisha Limited 665-3336 or visit us at Warrenville, Canupia. Shiklisha Limited, quality you can trust.
27 minutes before the top of the hour. That means we only have just about 25 minutes with you again in studio on 10 to 1. 10 to 1 is murder. In studio with me is Mr. Ved Seram, our in-house consultant on the politics and economics. And we are discussing the issues of the day. What drives a third political party? How people are feeling about the agro-processing industry, agriculture in general. Ved, we have some comments here on the page. Let me read one of it for you. One person said, I'm Mulligan. Just a second. She said the sugar production can come back to TNT because the equipment is more efficient. Folks don't have to cut cane manually. We can rise up, but this political game is snatching progress from our hands. Before you comment, let me read a couple other comments. Another person said, we are a tropical island with oil and gas. That's the focus. But to shift to agriculture, government will have to work on land enforcement and zoning rules and stop industrializing agricultural land. Another person talks about how Qatar is a corrupt place and they have a Western Front for investors, but they really pull back on human rights. And then there's a last comment there saying the caller is right. The PNM cannot lead a country. They are good at enriching others. Let us take this caller before you comment on that person. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All politicians love the word agriculture, but all politicians sell agricultural lands to their friends and family to do build housing development. Right in the back of me here, agricultural land. Vista Park is a big park with 60-something houses. Agricultural land. When I came down here to live over 70 years ago, over 60 years ago, they had sugar cane and everything. No, if they see it fit, that would sell the land to the big boys them to build houses and they continue to do the agriculture. But that's not my key point. My key point is forming the new parties. It would be so all the time. In the Northern Division, they would fool you every 5 years. In Central Division, we take all you for granted. And in the Southern Division, we like it so. So no party can come in there with them. That's how they would vote, and that's how they would never stop. Because when you stand for your right, people are vexed with you. If you supporting the PNM and you say the PNM do wrong, they say you're the UNC. If you're supporting the UNC and you say the UNC do wrong, they say you have PNM. So that's what's spoiling this country. It would never have this thing again. All these third parties that want to form, you have to work the vineyard for 5 years, not 5 months when election is called, and then after last minute pull out your candidates and all them kind of things. Politicians should have people work in the area for 5 years. They don't do it. They fool the people because the people vote on race all the time and it wouldn't stop. That's a thing we must stop. We have 2 third parties in this country that really make inroads. The ONR, the NAR, and they went to the seat. How much happened after when Pandey leave them? The one with Dukaran is the same thing. The COP is the same thing. When Dukaran leave it, the whole party must up. So it would be all the time. If they want to have a third force in Trinidad, as the election done here, they have to get 41 candidates. It's about 3 or 4 people in each area, work the area, and build it up. Let the people have confidence in you. People don't have confidence in politicians. I heard the past mayor of Port of Spain talking about corruption. He was there as mayor in Port of Spain. He didn't know that PNM was corrupt. He know. I wanted to get him on the program. He know PNM was corrupt. But when they put him out, then he said they corrupt. No, when you're inside here and you see the people doing corruption, deal with them. Then I would know. But you wouldn't be inside there and deal with them that time because they go fire you and fire you quick. In all parties in Trinidad that they had now, before and forever, they would always be so. You know why? Because all of them just help their friends and their family, and all of them is partner, and all of them will drink and lime together. But the only way to help this country, we have to see to it that agriculture is the way to go, and let the people, them, the lands that they have, do agriculture and forget who do it and who went to it and maintain it. I did buy about 1,000 pound corn every 2 months for my chicken and them. I would glad if I could get the corn locally here to buy the corn coming from Brazil and it's coming to Trinidad and selling $80 for 50 pounds. We could get it cheaper here in Trinidad, but no, the agriculture minister don't want to do that. Nobody who's studying agriculture in Trinidad. It is the only way to go. It is the only way to help you. And this COVID will finish half the world in 2.5 years' time. I thank you ever so much for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
You wanted to comment on the gentleman's contribution or on the comments I read on our YouTube page? You wanted to speak about agriculture.
Yeah, the question of agriculture. I'm glad the person mentioned you can...
the sugarcane industry.
Yes, because that is correct. Because I see people writing in the newspaper from a position of not knowing the technology that has developed over the years. Of course, we are familiar with large cane cutting machines.
It's not about sharpening your cutlass at 4 a.m. in the morning and walking in the dew to cut cane.
There'll be some
we are beyond that.
Yeah, we can manage an industry in a very professional and mechanized manner. And very simple inventions that have been made over the last 15 years. And that's probably after 10 years. They're small machines. In Japan, they have very, very efficient machines. Japan, there's a sugarcane industry, in case you don't know. China as well. But in Japan, they've mastered the cane cutting machines for all kinds of terrain, very efficient. They are walk-behind machines that 2 persons can operate. One fellow walking behind a small cane cutting machine, and the other one is putting it together. And 2 persons can cut 40 tons for the day. So I'm saying there are different methods that we can use now to have a very efficient industry.
Industry can be developed.
Yes, that will drop the cost of production of sugarcane. So I think also...
So it is possible we can go back into the sugar industry.
Well, we can, but it has to be a zero waste policy. We have to have serious people in it. I know people are saying that Trinidadians, they'll burn the cane and so on, and they'll be lazy and etc. But Trinidadians, they work very hard, you know. If you go and see the people working in agriculture, how hard they work for the day. If you see people working in the forest and thing, logging and all of that, going into mud up to knee high, and they're working. So let's not assume that Trinidadians are lazy and they can't. With proper management, proper training, that all of that can be done. But the sugar industry has to come back in a very holistic manner with a zero waste policy.
By that, what do you mean?
Right. We have an opportunity now to utilize natural gas to fuel the factory. When I researched it, I found that's what they're doing in Louisiana. Louisiana, they're utilizing the natural gas to fuel the factory and not the bagasse. They're taking the bagasse and they're making feed with it, they're making bagasse board with it, they're making other things with it, right? So we can use the feed now, and in fact, bagasse makes one of the best paper in the world. So we can have a small mini plant or a medium-sized plant from India to take the bagasse and make paper with it. But setting up a paper mill along with the sugar, the sugar mill, setting up a paper mill is that you are able to take all the waste paper in Trinidad and recycle it. So here it is.
Again, it comes back to recycling.
Yes, so we can have a huge industry for manufacture of all variety of paper. So using it, the bagasse as the base and waste paper, we are able to manage a wide variety for paper bags and all of that, right? So we also take some of the bagasse and you mix it back with hops from Carib, and you mix some of the molasses back into it, and you make animal feed, and we can support a very large dairy industry that we can supply ourselves with milk. Right now we are importing a tremendous amount of milk. we're importing all the butter, we're importing all the cheese. All of that could be supported by the sugar industry. So we have to get cracking and say what are the things we can actually do here. Now we can say, okay, it's cheaper to import. I don't have any problem with that. It's cheaper to import. I'm just saying, when your US dollar hard currency run out, what are you going to import with? And we have to face that possibilities, as we did in the early 1990s, where foreign exchange ran out, and subsequent to that, we had to be borrowing money to buy food. It doesn't make sense, So that's one with the sugar industry. So I'm glad the person made that very good observation, that we can mechanize the actual harvesting of cane.
The same person who commented on the sugar cane, she made another comment. Yeah, she said Bagasse makes great ropes and it cuts back on our carbon footprint, right? The locals can earn money and receive good training.
But there's such a variety of things can be done with the sugar cane. And there's a series of medicines and all you could also manufacture from it. But that's where the scientists come in and say, look, what are the high-end products? In other words, sugar might just be the byproduct,
And should that have been one of the recommendations in Dr. Rowley's recovery plan for agriculture?
Well, I don't know. I read the first plan and I found it.
From what you read, it was
from
not
vacuous.
there.
Vacuous.
It wasn't there.
Yeah, I wrote a commentary, an article on it, saying that it's doomed to fail.
Right.
It's doomed to fail. They're still talking about things that are not a priority at this point in time.
There was not any plan for the foreseeable future.
No, you still want to focus on construction. Construction of what? Houses, or construction of the airport in Tobago? Can you tell me when will tourism levels pick up again? You don't know, and you want to make investment.
We don't have sandals coming in again. Why do you need such a big airport in Tobago?
No, it doesn't make sense, because you have to say, by us spending that money, are there other priorities to spend the money? And food security is the number one priority today.
It should be for any nation.
Yes, and food security is one. Then food security will include growing of the food, but also processing of the food,
which will create
because
employment.
we have cycles. We have oversupply, and then we have gluts, and then we have shortages of food, and food processing will address that situation.
One person is writing here. Thank you. She said also the high fructose corn sugar has replaced normal cane sugar. The US is pushing that product, and that is unhealthy. There is a market for brown sugar all over the world.
Well, brown sugar, apart from that, there's what you call natural sugars from the sugar cane. Almost organic, depending on how you fertilize the field. But by and large, you have the natural sugar is just a dehydrated sugarcane juice. That's the product I manufacture. Dehydrated sugarcane juice. It does have all the molasses in it. When you look at the content of molasses,
is that the jaggery?
The jaggery. It's about 12% of that is molasses.
Molasses.
But then it has no chemicals. When you buy normal white sugar, that sugar...
It's packed with chemicals.
Packed with chemicals, and then it's also bleached with chemicals as well. So,
so it's unhealthy.
Yeah. And for vegetarians, some of it is actually done with bones.
Yes, I heard.
Right? So we don't know what goes into it. So wholesome sugar.
I don't know if that is true.
Wholesome sugar is a major alternative. It's
natural brown sugar.
It's a huge industry in India, a huge industry in Philippines, huge industry in Colombia, Venezuela, Mexico, Rapadura, they call it in Brazil. So why can't we go back to healthy eating? You taste it in coffee, you make cakes with it, you make a variety of baked items, and it gives you a very nice texture, and the flavor is good. You make ice cream with it as well. So there's so many things to be introduced in Trinidad. We don't have to reinvent the wheel,
Listeners, you have just about 10 minutes. If you wish to call in again on 10 to 1, 636-7547, 2275739. Thank you to all our commentators on YouTube who have commented through our YouTube post on RCLU 975. Thank you for joining us and commenting there.
I want to make two other points concerning the sugar industry.
Go ahead.
For example, we probably import about 60 million in molasses to make by Angostura, right?
To make rum.
And we import additional molasses for a variety of reasons. Now we can make sweet molasses without even making the sugar. You grow the cane, you harvest the cane, you crush the cane, you boil the juice to a concentration of around 85 bricks. That is how thick it is.
How it is measured,
and that's
yes.
sweet molasses. So we don't even have to crystallize and make sugar. About 2 or 3 years ago, Angostura said that they would like to recommence the growing of sugar to make molasses. Now this is a very easy way for us to supply what you call local content, supplying the local content of our current manufacturers. And we could supply all the sweet molasses to Angostura. Their blends will have to change in terms of making the alcohol, but at least we will put people back to work in Trinidad.
Let's hear this caller, Wade. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. As you close, Mr. Steve, just
Yes.
a couple points I wanted to make.
Yes.
I listened to all that you spoke about, and I want to agree. I want to, well, all the views you spoke about areas of production that we need to get into.
Yes.
I'm not pouring anything on them, but I mean, those are low-hanging fruits. I
Yes.
consider them to be in some way, I mean, again, not pouring anything in them, pedestrian industries.
Right.
But, I always listen to what Patrick Manning had said.
Yes.
He wanted this country to be an industrialized nation.
Yes. Yes.
So he wanted us to have an aluminum smelter plant, which is heresy for a lot of people, right? Polypropylene would have been an offshoot of the hydrocarbon industry also. Today, aluminum and plastic are some of the greatest demand that you have because robotics and electric cars and all of those, those are the ones that is been using those industries, right? So we cannot forget the fact that we have resources here which we can bring in other resources, add value to it, and become producing something that really and truly is of substance and wanted globally. So I don't want us to leave out the macro industries, which really and truly are going to be long-term benefit for this country, because we need to show that with the resources that we have here, we can import other resources, and we can add value to it and make it into something. Aluminum and polypropylene, those are industries that we ought not to leave standing by the wayside.
Yeah.
I listen to your comments.
You see, I don't disagree with you at all. But one of the preconditions for those industries at the time when they worked out the feasibility study was the low cost of gas. The question I would ask is whether that assumption still holds. That's one. Secondly, if, for example, we had the raw materials for that's alumina to make the aluminum, it puts us in a strong position, but we have to import that, and we are already processing. Now, most of the manufacturing sectors in Trinidad is subject to subsidies. And the question I would ask before we finalize, let's say, whether we should proceed or not to proceed with it, apart from the EMAs and so on, right, the environmental issues. But let's assume that is addressed. I don't disagree with you at all. We need to really study to see what are the industries we can even start or encourage, given still our supply of gas and at the price of the gas. How can we make our energy sector the most efficient, and whether we should be redirecting, whether we should be exporting our gas by way of the Atlantic LNG, or whether we should be using that gas for local production, and that whether the cost of mining that gas and coming to the industries will give us a competitive advantage on the global scale. So I don't disagree with you at all. I'm just saying that we should not be running it on the assumption of continued subsidies.
Caller, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for the second call. We had a sugar that we used to get, or when you go with that crystal sugar, it's the best taste you ever eat in your whole life. And they closed down the factory. I don't know whether it was US, PNM now and but they closed it down. When we're talking about industrial things and doing, the government is here, they're there for 5 years, they should be able to do it. I heard Mr. Wade talking about cheaper prices to import things. If these people can do it there at a cheaper price, let's get into the country, they get some of their ideas and see if they can do the same thing here, also at a cheaper price. But no, the politician would not do that. You know why? People you would have more money. Building airport have more money. Buying boat have more money. And all these sort of things. It's not money for the people at Trinidad, you know. Money for the boys and them. That's why the poor people in Trinidad would always get. We don't have a government. The Pandey's government who help the people more than any other government that ever go in this country in my 72 years of life. I thank you about
Yeah, I mentioned it's cheaper to import. I said that is an argument used by persons. But in my view, it is cheaper to import because that our dollar is overvalued. And I said that has to be corrected.
Hello, good afternoon, caller.
Yes, good afternoon, Anne and Mr. Vade.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Vade, I would like to explain what is jaggery. I don't know what it is really. I always hear about it.
Oh, Lord.
Sorry, must I listen?
Okay, listen.
Okay. Yeah, jaggery, listen, we used to make it a long time in Trinidad. They used to call it Bailey. I don't know if you remember that or your parents might remember. And this, you remember the copper that you see all around Trinidad?
Yes.
Right, that copper was used for boiling the sugarcane juice on an open fire. And when you boil down the juice, you dehydrate the juice and the slurry becomes very thick, and that retains all the molasses, all the nutrients of the sugarcane juice.
It's like a thick syrup.
Yes, it's a thick syrup, but then you can, once you can beat that up and let it dry, and it becomes a hard block like they make it in India.
Like a
in
fudge.
buckets.
It's like a fudge.
It's like a fudge,
Like
yeah.
a big fudge.
Yeah. And if you leave it at around 85 bricks or so, it's a very thick syrup. So that's what people use for years. In India, it's over 4,000 years.
Let's entertain this last final caller before we wind down. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And Mr. Shiram,
yes, sir?
Before centrifugal separation to get rid of the liquids and have the sugar granules remain,
yes,
they used to actually put them in cones. The cones made of clay.
Yes, yes.
And they put them in there and ship them that way. So while the shipment, the liquids will really get down to the bottom of the cone,
yes,
leaving the sugar cakes. So they made the sugar cakes by the time they were exported. I just want to add something else. You know, as you're talking, I realize something. We are less independent now from comparing to before we became independent. Before we became independent, people roasted corn, they made a sweet bread, they did chana, whatever, and they sell in, and everybody makes sense of it. Plant or something. After independence, when we started all these making programs, check what happened now. Is CPEP, is URP, is food card, is dependency right through in the country. And I would say, before we became independent, as you remember, we had a license for a bicycle. Your dog had to have a license. Your cat had a license. It's not a matter of the cost, you know. The cost to produce that license was more than you paying for it. It was a matter of discipline, a matter of having a sense of responsibility. When we remove that discipline, responsibility, go on to the window. And with that, productivity and everything else. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Wait, let me have your final and closing comments.
Well, I quite enjoyed today's session, and
Indeed.
thanks all the
It was
callers.
so very active.
And I think it's a question of let's sift out what are the things should be done and should not be done, and let us make the politicians know that we have educated citizens in this country who are very nationalistic in their views, and recognize that look, we are looking on because we need to survive in Trinidad.
You can't just go and hand them a T-shirt and expect their vote.
No, I think times for all
Days
of that
for that have passed.
Yes. Well, thank you, Anne, and
Yes,
thank you all
thank
callers.
you, Vade. You will be joining me back on Wednesday
On Wednesday.
the Political
Yes.
Forum. Thank you, Vade. To all our listeners of 10 to 1, thank you very much. Thank you to Shiva Parasram for having us live on YouTube. If you have missed any part of this program, you can catch us on RCL U975. I am Ann Duki. Have yourself a wonderful evening.
KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canoopia, for all your plumbing and electrical supplies, water heaters, filters, and water pumps, plus all parts for Gould, Pentax, and Leo pumps. Choose from leading brands such as Cooper, Varma, BTCino, Leviton, and General Electric. Call 665-6954 for more information. KY's Electrical Supplies Limited of Southern Main Road, Canoopia.